we're live.
Well, here we are again. Not where we expected to be, but it's the 25th annual FisherPoets Gathering, the second annual, and we do hope the final virtual FisherPoets Gathering. And we're glad you joined us from wherever you are. We got folks from England, from Hawaii, from Alaska, of course, the coast, and lots of places. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for celebrating the 25th annual FisherPoets Gathering with us here online. Tell your friends. We got an evening tonight of quick 5-minute reads from all kinds of people. Everything is on the website, the fisherpoets.org website, if you want to have a look and keep track of the evening reading schedules and the workshops tomorrow, and then readings again tomorrow night. And David Bean, my friend from Portland, is ready to join us. David, good to see you. Give us something from Portland, will you?
Well, yes, I will. If I can get this stuff to work. So, thank you very much for the 25th rodeo of the most wayward bunch in the world. Thank you, John, Jay, Amanda, Hobie, Sage, and all the others who make this a high point of my year. As time is short, I have crafted a poem for this very moment. Here it goes. It's called That Special Gaff. I saw a kid freaked out by the news. He had a case of the I got no future blues. I too had a case of those in '62, and I wanted to help him feel okay. So I began to tell him to use the use of tools in the old fisherman's way. A fisherman always knows the right tool to use, as I told this kid. He must know the difference between a fiddle and a fid, a cleat and a dog, a gill net and a seine. I showed him the difference between a bowline and a hitch, and oh, how this world some days is a pain. But with the right tool, I said, anything can be fixed. Back in 1962, the powers were learning how the missiles flew and exactly what not to do when Castro, Khrushchev, Kennedy cranked the nuclear screw. How tight, we kept asking ourselves before this whole thing blew. Back when I was a bait boy on the Salmon Queen, working for experience, still a little green, I asked the old salt how he could live with this imminent threat of thinking that every day the world would end. He leaned back and said, listen, my friend, we went through some kind of times like this before. That was back during the war, and we went through it. And here we are. There's not much to say anymore. Most of us have sailed the seas, have had our personal eye lock with destiny, being thrown from a bunk in a wild gale, a wrong step in the bite of a line, making eye contact close up with a whale. Then there's this hitch that enwraps us all together inside a cosmic knot hole, as if we're all holding hands in a pitfall. It grabs us by our guts, especially drives the young ones nuts, while old buzzards that we are seem to stand easy as from afar, as if not touched by the genuine horrors. We just say, is that so? Lucky for me, this isn't my first cosmic knot hole. One shows up about every 40, 60 years, and that thing sure snags all our fears. So be glad some of us have experience when it becomes time to get the right gear. Now then, where is that tool? I know it's around here somewhere, though 60 years have passed. It must be someplace, maybe in that gear locker, aft, beneath the underclutter, or up the bilge vent. Ah, that's where it's lashed. It still smells kind of Cuban. That tool we need right now, at last. The cosmic knothole extraction gaff. And aren't we lucky? The guy at the helm of the ship of state is known to be master of the gaff. So there you have it. My first 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice. Nice kickoff, David. Yeah, I'm taking us from the 60s back to the 60s. Oh my gosh. So, yeah. Thanks for your wise words. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you in Astoria next year. I think next up is our friend Annie Howell-Adams, who comes to us from Friday Harbor, fine artist and also a poet and storyteller, bringing us tonight, I think, stories from Southeast Alaska, perhaps. Annie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. All righty. Yellowbird. During my years as a commercial fisherman, paper charts were in use. 10 miles off Cape Spencer was a quirky notation in between fathom marks that read PD. What did PD stand for? Position doubtful. The area around this shifting location was known as the PD grounds. It was a place to fish for cohos miles offshore. Now imagine you're on the back deck of an old wooden salmon trawler. It's the end of the season, fall is descending. The weather hovers at the brink of fishable. Your hands are tucked into your dingy yellow Helly Hansens. No amount of layers can keep you warm. You lean into the corner of the cockpit for protection from the wind, but mostly to stabilize yourself from rough seas. You're waiting for the fish to bite, but they're not interested. Boats have all left the fishing grounds. There's no one to gossip about. Radio silence. An icy wind is blowing down off the glaciers of the Fairweather Mountains, way out to the PD grounds. Look at the rail. A tiny, bright yellow puff of a songbird landed on the starboard railing, panting. What are you doing here? This isn't the right direction to go. You should be back on land, eating bugs. We stared at the tiny yellow songbird, like a champagne cork of yellow joy. This was the first bright color we'd seen in days, other than salmon blood. Let's let him rest in the wheelhouse. Picking him up wasn't difficult. He was too tired to resist. While our little passenger recuperated in the wheelhouse, we discussed our good luck to have been in the right place to save the bird from uncertainty. If we hadn't been out here, he would have been blown all the way across the Pacific. This isn't any kind of place for a warbler, whatever he is. We wondered why our little yellow bird was so late in traveling south. Even the Washington trawlers had all left weeks ago. They didn't want to get caught in bad weather. We ran the gear with renewed enthusiasm. I climbed out of the cockpit to check on how our new crew member was doing. I peeked inside Marvel's wheelhouse. He was sitting on the fathometer. As I peered inside, I scared him. He flew out on deck and landed in the corner of the scuppers, tangled in the deck wash. Quick, pick him up. I reached down to pick him up, to help him. He didn't know I was trying to help. Instead, he flew up into the cold wind. Just at that moment, a wave slapped the side of the hull. Salt spray reached up and pulled the little bird down into the chilly water. I could see him on his back. The surface tension of the rough water splayed out his tiny wings. He was upside down, helpless, unable to flip over. Man overboard! I glanced around for something to throw out to mark our bird's position and started a wide sweeping turn to circle back and come around and come close enough to pick him up out of the water. Now, he was beyond our reach as we slid by. Out of nowhere, a massive seagull dove straight down like a missile. He devoured the little bird in one gulp, right in front of us. Just like that, our bird was gone. We solemnly climbed back into the cockpit, gutted, and pulled the gear on board. We covered the gear with burlap and pointed Marvel toward shore. Let's get out of here. The anchorage was quiet, remote, vacant. A soothing cup of tea warmed my hands as I sat on the hatch cover. Without the noisy diesel engine, sounds could be heard across the bay, piercing the heavy marine air. I couldn't help wonder about the bird. What was going to happen to the bird anyway? Why didn't I put him in something to bring him back to land? After killing fish all season, what did one little yellow bird matter? I sipped on my tea and thought, the bird was me, out offshore, in a place where I didn't belong, in a doubtful position, where danger and a small air could swallow me in one gulp. Thank you.
Wow, hey, that's a terrific story. A lot of story out of one little bird. I'm glad you paid it such attention and kept it for us. Yeah, well, thanks for bringing that to us. Well, next up, Dennis McGuire comes to us from Cordova and Port Townsend and from a little boat on the high seas. Dennis, thanks for joining us. It's been a little while since we've seen you. Good to see you tonight.
Oh, it's good to be back. You hear me okay? You all good?
We do.
Okay. I'll still have a little poem here. What it is actually the beginning of the book I just published. And that's it right there. Calypso, the boat. Ballad of Calypso is the poem, and actually the book story. It's a combination of poetry, illustrations, drawn pictures, and prose. So here we go. This is the first, just getting out of it. It's called Herring Roe and Kelp Dive. This is an obscure fishery up in Prince William Sound that no longer exists, unfortunately. So here we go. Late March in Prince William Sound, icy snow covers the ground. Through glacial waters streaks the spring dawn. Great schools of herring have come here to spawn. The Alaska spring of 1979 is a banner year for the herring stocks of Prince William Sound. A bumper crop of herring roe and kelp, Kazunoko kombu, a Japanese delicacy, will be harvested from these waters this year. Untold numbers of these silvery schools will wind through their fjords. The waters will cloud up with milk released by the males to fertilize the eggs. The females will swim into the clouded waters and flutter their tails as they lay snow white eggs across the leaves of ribbon kelp, then which stream down over the boulders and intertwine in the hollows. Sieve kelp stands like giant cabbages in patches alongside of hair kelp. Hair kelp appears as sagebrush before the arrival of the herring. Ribbon and sieve fronds will receive a thick blanket of eggs. Layer after layer will flock the thin stranded limbs of the hair kelp, thick as Christmas trees. The scene presents itself as a winter wonderland to the diver. A circus atmosphere fills the air as barges are loaded for this grand affair. Kelp buying stations, these old wooden sleds, and a place where divers make their beds. Out on the grounds, get our skiffs ready. Air compressor, pumping steady, waxing zippers on the suits, checking for holes in the bottoms of boots. The condition of the suit top notch throughout. Got to protect the diver from freezing out. air hose coiled, kelp boxes stacked, with charcoal and cotton, the air filters packed. Working their skiff, the crew had dubbed Razzle Dazzle in honor of Jack London's sailboat during his oyster pirating days. They are filling their kelp boxes with ribbon, sieve, and hair kelp, which are heavily laden with herring roe. A compressor is pumping fresh air down to the diver on a hookah hose in the frigid waters of Valdez Arm. Icebergs the size of a small house calved from the Columbia Glacier beached on Bly Island, Rocky Point, and the shallows of Tutitlic Narrows. Bergs and bergy bits are floating free in the nearby deep waters of the Arm. There's a new beauty down below, across the undersea landscape, a fresh herring spawn snow. The generation growing to life here on ribbon, hair, and elephant ear. Clams and urchins and cucumbers are fine, but herring roe kelp diving really sublime. Swimming straight down into this icy cold brine, filling our skiff with a product so fine. Diving hard 8 days in a row, we have $8 grand to show for that sailboat we've been wishing long before we started fishing. The quality of this season does entice, a very satisfying, healthy price. Leaving the grounds far astern, headed to town, money to burn. And there's a footnote on this chapter. It will only be 10 years before this wonder of nature, created over the eons, is destroyed by a reckless act. Excuse me. By a reckless act committed by those in the wheelhouse of the Exxon Valdez on March 24th, 1989. This will be ground zero, where the herring and their eggs will be destroyed. Excuse me. The water is made toxic, eggs covered in crude oil. The largest, most modern oil tanker in the world, fully loaded, will strike the reef a few hundred yards from where the Razzle Dazzle and crew are at work. Thank you. That's it. Turn me off.
Well, thanks, Dennis, for bringing that to us, bringing those good old days back, and loving the fishery like you do and continue to. Thanks for reading that for us. It's awful good to hear you. Well, next up, I believe, is our friend Brad Warren from Seattle. Brad, every time you play guitar, I just get chills. So I'm glad you brought it here tonight. Looking forward to hearing you.
You're kind. This is a piece called The 5 O'Clock Shadow, and it maybe grew out of not having sense enough not to play in waterfront bars when I was a young musician. It's another cold, rainy day, if you can call it day. Just a pallid imitation of a dim bulb in the sky, so the wharf rats can watch the boats wallow in low, and the tired crews can stagger to the 5 o'clock shadow. The 5 o'clock shadow. Crack a beer, let out a sigh. Tell me about the one that got away. Those emerald eyes so they say. Oh, why the docks are full of lies. That's what keeps me in business at the 5 o'clock shadow. The 5 o'clock shadow. Don't call me to tell your lost fisherman. Maybe he's got his reasons. The whole harbor knows his warehouse is aglow. Girl, you thought that boat was for fish? If you catch my drift, I'll buy you around at the 5 o'clock shadow. They say the kingpin in this town, he used to swan around with the whole same crew in tow. He was young and proud till he sat down for a round with a guy who plays for keeps. Oh, the secrets you could know at the 5 o'clock shadow. Now some folks say he's on the lam. The truth is, well, I ain't saying. If you're asking me who's paying, you sure you want to know? But take a look around and guess. Which one's a federal? He's looking high and low for the 5 o'clock shadow. 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 Thank you. Many thanks, really, to Jon and Amanda and all of you for keeping us here.
Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming. Thanks for bringing the 5 o'clock shadow. That was a new one for me. Nah, thanks.
Nobody saw him come. Nobody saw him leave. Nobody got a look at his face.
Yeah, that's good. Good. Well, we'll keep an eye peeled for what good it does. Thanks, Brad. I got a couple friends up there in Bellingham. We do. Buck, Meloy, and his pal Joe Deeny are going to join us tonight. Bring us tales from the Gulf someplace. Thanks for joining us, you guys.
Go ahead, Buck.
Yeah, okay. We're there?
You're live.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Brad. Joe's going to read a story I wrote in 1999 called Potatoes, about salmon fishing in difficult weather in Alaska. He knows how to tell a story much better than I do. And I thank him for being willing to do this. So here's Joe Deeny.
Thank you, Buck. It's an honor and a pleasure to read this story. I hope to do justice to these good words. This is Thursday on the 1st of September, and we've been fishing nonstop since Sunday when we had a short break. I've been on the water since I left town 2 weeks ago. There are some 150 gillnet boats here in Controller Bay, about 100 miles from Cordova, the nearest town. We've come to catch coho salmon, which have been returning in unexpected numbers. The surprising strength of the run has resulted in a greatly extended fishing time and a fantastic harvest. Almost no one was quite ready for this. This many fishermen living in their small vessels require considerable support just for basic maintenance. Fuel, groceries, drinking water, ice for chilling fish, stove oil for cooking, all depend on the large tenders who motor out from Cordova to buy our fish. This is a complex task under ideal circumstances and a gargantuan one when productivity quadruples and the weather turns foul. Fortunately, we are happily compensated by the larger than normal paychecks. On the other hand, when one is working this hard and constant wind, wave, and rain guarantee that he is wet, cold, tired, and miserable, little things like something hot to eat or even just a cup of coffee can take on a much greater importance. So today, after grubbing around in the mess that is my larder, I found an old sack of potatoes, organically grown in Washington by my wife, that I had hastily dug there a month ago. Here, the oil stove is running, albeit poorly, because I lack the starboard list that makes it run so well. I will slow bake them, drench them in butter, and have them as a main course following a bowl of instant ramen Asian soup. I will reflect upon the distant verdant scene next to my rusting 1949 Chevy pickup, where they grew so well in the fertile soil of our backyard. I will think of the others still lying in the ground, waiting for my return when this is all over, and in how their skins were already yellowing, indicating their quiet readiness. This meal then will be the moment in my day that connects me to the life I live when I do not ache from overwork, when I do not yearn for rest from protracted lack of sleep, when I do not rock and roll, constantly confined to a space the size of a closet, and in a place where rain is exception rather than the rule. At each bite, I will be reminded of the lush green and flowering yard, nurtured so carefully, its myriad berries, apples, pears, its peas and beans, Brussels sprouts and corn, squash and tomatoes. Slicing the skin of a potato, I will recall my careless haste in digging it, how my digging fork upbraided and marked the tender, juicy surface. I will marvel that our household waste provides such a nurturing soil for a potato. I will ignore the wail of the wind in my rigging as I eat and contemplate. And I will not notice the constant motion of the vessel. This meal is both physical sustenance and spiritual succor. This meal will carry me forth into another day, for the moment unbowed by the oppressively gray and awful forces of nature that currently define my existence. Very nice words, Buck. Very nice words.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, well, thank you, Joe, and thank you, Buck. Thanks for reminding us how simple pleasures are what fuel our lives, really. That's terrific. Thanks for bringing that back to us. Good. Well, after Buck and Joe, I think we have Erica Clark, Cordova gal, who's down here in Astoria with us now, and we're glad of it. She helps us plan this Fisher Poets Gathering thing. And Erica, are you nearby? Because we'd love to hear from you.
I'm here.
You are? Okay.
Well, I think I'm here.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a couple short pieces. The first one is called I Want to Get You in a Bunk. And it's a piece I wrote about my now husband, then boyfriend, years and years ago. I want to get you in a bunk and wrap my legs around you. I want to drink sweet wine out of porcelain mugs and laugh until we cry. I want to cook our food on a diesel stove while our gloves hang above to dry. I want to make slow love to the sound of the waves as they drift on past my hull. Yeah, I want to get you in a bunk. Get you in a bunk and wrap my legs around you. I want to hear you moan, hear you mixed with the moans of the wind. And I want to run my fingers through your hair, through your soft, beautiful hair. I want to get you in a bunk. Get you in a bunk and wrap my legs around you. I want to cast a net and catch you up and wrap my legs around you. I'd like to anchor up in a quiet little cove and get on down to business. And when we're through, just me and you, all hot and salty and spent, I'm gonna look at you with a sly silver grin and say, let's do it again. I want to get you in a bunk. And this next piece is called Seasons. It is from a very different season of my life. Not a fisherman anymore, as I stand and stare out from the shore. I won't go to sea. It's not for me. No, I'm not a fisherman anymore. Instead, I'll raise these babies, even though they occasionally drive me crazy. I'm cleaning the shoreline instead of pulling up ground line. My kisses mend bumps and scrapes of all kinds quickly, like my hands used to strip cork line. I've learned the signs beyond flipping the bird, so I could teach my children the word for water, for food, for love. See, I want them to know just how far it can go if they care for the sea just like me, for the waters I've sailed on, from the ports that I've hailed from, for the fish on their plates when their dad's running late from towing someone safely to shore. No, I'm not a fisherman anymore. As a mom, I sing songs about packing along plastic bottles, old shoes, and used masks. And I know someday they will ask why I'm not a fisherman anymore. And the last piece is one that I wrote last year when I missed all of you here in Astoria. I was hoping I'd be singing it to you in person, but maybe, hopefully next year. And this is our ode to Astoria. Oh, Astoria, I am coming home to you. Oh, Astoria, I am trying to get to you. Want to stand on the river where the water meets the blue. Oh, Astoria, I am coming home to you. Oh, Astoria, I want to get to you. Oh, Astoria, I am trying to see it through, trying to walk by the river where the ship horns blew. Oh, Astoria, I am coming home to you. Oh, Astoria, I've finally got to you. Now I live where the water meets the blue, made my home right here on the sunny south slope. Oh, Astoria, I am never leaving you. Until next year, our friends will be sending you lots of love from Astoria, from me and the entire Fisher Poets crew here.
Yay! Oh.
That's my dad and my husband.
Oh, that's terrific. We're glad they're there. And we're glad you're here in Astoria, Erica. We're so glad you joined us. And you tell your dad and Dan hi for us. That's great. Well, And not too far from the other Astoria, I understand there's one over there. Well, I think I'm about ready to skip Doug here, but I see Ken's up next. But Doug is stuck someplace between Mexico and Craig, Alaska, and he'll tell us where, but he's heading home. Another Southeast Alaska gill netter. Glad to have you join us. Thanks for taking the trouble to get there from your
Well, thanks,
from
John.
someplace in
Coming
between.
to you live from the Ramada Inn and the Spokane Airport. We just got back from, am I on there good near? I think I'm on there.
Yep, we got you.
Okay, yep, we just got back from Baja after a month or two down in a truck camper, and people sometimes ask, how do you and Cheryl handle staying in a little camper for so long down on a beach somewhere like that? And this poem is my answer to that. It's called 8 Feet of Total Freedom. If you've been living on a fishing boat all season long in a little confined space with a few plates and cookingware in it, all fits into a little place. If you've been living on a fishing boat from Alaska on over to Nantucket, you cook everything on a single burner and your crapper's a 5-gallon bucket. If you've been living on a fishing boat and things are still hard to find, and sometimes you have to step out on deck to have the room to change your mind. If you've been living on a fishing boat where a duffel bag holds all your clothes and you're in close proximity to your partners and no arguments have arose, then brother, you're ready for the camper life and you're gonna be in luck. You got 8 feet of total freedom crammed into the bed of your pickup truck. It's not much different from living on a boat. You're always replacing 12-volt wires, but instead of checking for water in the bilge, you have to check the air pressure in your tires. You pull up to a beach for the evening and find a place out of the wind's whooshes. It's kind of like anchoring up for the night. You find a calm spot in the lee of the bushes. Sometimes the wind will rock you around and you can feel the shocks and suspension strain, but it's not all that different from dropping the pick and feeling the tug on the anchor chain. The galley table is about the same size, but to sit there, you should be a little bit thinner. More than once, I've had to work to get out after eating a really big dinner. Now, if you don't live on an island like us, you just might not understand, but it's kind of a novelty, you see, to actually get to drive around on the land. We like to drive down to Baja during Alaska's cold winter times and stock our little refrigerator with beer and ice and limes. And we're not the only ones doing this during the January and February dates. We run into others in the middle of nowhere, and a lot of them have Alaska plates. So if you've been living on a fishing boat, then brother, you're in luck. You'll be amazed at all the stuff you can cram into the camper on the bed of a truck. And I got one, and that's the truth. That's all true, by the way. This other one is also true. This one is about I've had the same boat since 1989. And when I got the boat built, I swore I would never collect too much stuff on the boat. And it's a promise I didn't keep. And this poem is about me trying to clean up my cabin, and it's called Too Hard to Throw Away. I decided to clean out my boat drawers, and it came without a warning. But I found so much stuff in there, it was just like Christmas morning. I found jars of bolts and cans of screws and a million things I'll never use. Hydraulic fittings, lots of O-rings, electrical tape, and some random things. Tons of zip ties, wire by the mile, hooks and hoochies, and a rusty file. Knives and scrapers, ganyons and twine, needles and fids, and monofilament line. Chunks of chain, a great big shackle, a half-used zinc, and some sport fishing tackle. Hyanotic parts and whale pingers too. Batteries and more batteries, old and new. Caulking guns and caulking tubes, various hose clamps and gear oil lubes. Old hydraulic motors, old net drum gears, a quart of blue paint I've had for 30 years. A fancy custom part in the bottom of the drawer. Not a damn clue what that sucker is for. Wax for survival suit zippers, extra pots and pans, putty knives and scrapers, and 2 splash zone cans. Manuals and more manuals, an old permit card. Throwing it away must have just been too hard. So much of this stuff I know I'll never use, so maybe I'll high grade all the trinkets and the rest I will lose. So I'm throwing out what I don't need, and I scattered it all across my cabin floors. But you know, 95% of that stuff is gonna end up back in those drawers. Thank you, guys. Hope to see you next year in Astoria.
Well, thanks, Doug. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for the inventory. My wife's laughing at me over here. That's good to know we all have that company. That's lovely. Thanks. Well, Ken Samuelson's coming to us from New York again, and that's a real treat to have you join us clear from the big city of New York. I understand you got an Astoria back there too, so thanks again for making the trip. Oh, Ken, pick us up. All right, Ken, we may have to skip you and put you back in if you don't pick up the radio. Well, Amanda, if we don't find him, let's go to Fred and Bailey, and we'll sneak Ken back in here after that gets squared away. Fred comes to us from Chesapeake, where he's a waterman there, and you come to us tonight from Chesapeake Bay in Maryland, and his pal and deckhand Bailey worked out some lovely work for us tonight. So thanks for joining us, you guys.
Thank you, John, and thank everybody out there on the Pacific Coast for doing this year after year. It's a great event, and I know how much work it is for you all to put it on, but it sure is a lot of fun. And Bailey and I both hope to get out there next year and join you in person out there. We're going to work together, and Bailey's a videographer, and I'm a poet, and we're going to present 2 pieces. The first one is about shaft tonguing on Chesapeake Bay. It's called On the Washboards. The washboards are the gunnels or the small decks along the side rails of a workboat. And to harvest oysters with shaft tongues, which is the ancient way, the hardest way to get them, you stand up on the washboard and you have 12 to up to 26-foot heart pine shavs pinned together. And at the bottom of those shavs is 2 baskets, the rakes, the tongue heads, and you shuffle them along the bottom and gather up a lick of oysters, which is one tongueful, and bring them up and dump them on a Colin board. So this poem is about an old salt and his young friend on opposite washboards of a Chesapeake Bay boat. And the only other thing you have to understand perhaps is the tally is 5. Probably know that, but they count oysters in tallies because they say oystermen can't count above 5. That's probably a little bit accurate because the main prerequisite is to be a shaft tonger, strong back and a weak mind. We're going to start this in 3 sections, and Bailey's going to start now with the morning.
Morning. Don't think that ebb tide ain't clipping now.
Same's a mill race. Can't hardly make this lick.
Old easterly breeze is cutting too, coming out the snow hole.
My fingers is froze. Darn gloves wet.
I can't keep a pair dry after the first day.
Me neither. Guess it's part the job.
Job ain't no good word for this. Sounds too dignified.
Part the punishment then.
You could be somewhere else, you know.
Wish I was right now. First hour is the worst hour.
Noon. We got 10 yet?
No, indeed. Way off today. No more than 8. Gonna have to grind hard for 3 tallies.
Tell me something I don't know.
Tell you what Lex told me when I told her we had 21 Friday.
Come on with it then.
She said, well, you must have had good licking then. I said, no, darling. A good licking is what we gave ourselves in catching them.
And then what?
Oh, I told her about us being the power toners and all that trash.
You mean big lick, every lick, nothing but clean, clear hair?
Yeah, told her about bringing the hair and all that.
Time now you get back up there again and find some of that hair.
Guess we better. Ain't enough stuff against that bulkhead for a cat to lick.
Afternoon. Darn, it's nasty in this sleep. I'll have to eat extra pills tonight.
Yeah, my arms are limber than those 26s old Jerome used out on Snake Reef.
Why do you think they call me spaghetti arms? Can't believe you pulled 26s with no winder.
That's why I'm no good now. This job makes a boy out of a man.
Well, I'm 23 now and consider myself a man.
Talk to me again after this.
You might be hard to find by then.
If you're looking on a washboard, I hope I am.
We got 15 yet?
Expect so. You ready to get the killix?
Heck no, that's the best lick I've made today. Count them.
24 pretty ones. Must be in your goddamn genes. Your grandpa Jerome used to say the same thing right at quitting time.
Get to that board and clear me a hole, old man. I'm a power toner and I'm on the hair.
Come on with it then, honey. You hump them up. I'll wrap them back. Thank you.
Thanks.
The hair is when you're getting clear oysters. And that's the motto of the power toners was clean lick, every lick, nothing but clean, clear hair. Now we're going to take you to the other principal fishery on Chesapeake Bay, which is the crab fishery for swimming blue crabs. And I'm going to turn it over to Bailey. I'm just going to make one point before I back out of here, because he's going to show you his film he made with the words of my poem put together with it. But in chasing blue crabs, the most prized thing you can do is catch double crabs, which is a mated pair. A Jimmy crab, a big channeler, a big aggressive male, and the small female that he carries under him until she sheds. And that's when they mate. And that's how more crabs come to exist. But those blue crabs are swimming crabs. To catch them in this old way, which is the trot line, which I and some others still do, you have to ease them off the bottom so they don't even know that they're swimming along with the bait. Then you hand dip them with a net. Okay, Bailey, take it away from here.
Great.
Thank you all again.
So I met Fred a few years ago and I was blessed to go out on his boat with him. And because I'm a filmmaker and just love filming, I basically filmed the whole thing without really an intention on what to do with it. And then last year I found out Fred was also a poet, and I was able to go back down to the Chesapeake and record one of his poems. And we put it to this kind of piece of video showing what crabbing is like on the Chesapeake. And it's a really nice little moment where you can see what it's like. So ready to play.
The ghost of old Gene Elliott cackles and curses as I haul the river edge of vanishing Jameses. Mean Uncle Gene, they called him, and bad luck to a man who sat near him, who tried to get a piece of the loamy mud just north of the now sunken Shell Road that carried long forgotten watermen to their homes on the once settled island that divides the bay from the river. He took that lay from Hansel Gohegan, took it on trust from a sick man. Never gave it back when the old salt recovered, sneered, when it comes to crabbing, I've got neither friends nor relations. And he guarded these edges when I was a young man. But he took too many kick-ass nor'easters, rolling in his 42-footer till the soda rolled out of his biscuits. He lusted and lunged for the double crabs, big jimmies carrying demure peelers that crawl to this pocket every summer, congregate here to replenish the species. They're loath to leave the river mud for the hard, bleak sand of the bay shore, so they cling to the stumps of vanishing Jameses as I cling to the life of a fisherman, inheriting this lay from a crazy man, making the night sail all summer, hurling bleary-eyed in a stream of phosphorescence to a haunted and disappearing island, then dropping my set in the starlight in the soft summer hours before dawn. 10 weeks here makes my season. As long as I hold enough bottom, surround enough doublers with snoozes. The peelers my daughter hoards in her shedders till they back from their sheds on the night tide, scooped helpless in their velvet perfection, while their uncaught sisters couple at James's, taking the seed from the jimmies on out to the bay from the river in ever diminishing numbers as my years slip away like the island, glowing with the fire of the nettles, grinding like the ebb on the Shell Road, rolling with the seas insistent, then softening like the dawns of the summers, till my ghost joins old Jean and the others, hauling down the edges of James's.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thanks, Bailey. Thanks, Fred. That's a lovely trip to the Chesapeake for us. A place most of us hadn't been in a fishery a lot of us here aren't familiar with. So thanks for bringing that lovely work to us. Thanks for joining us. So I think Abigail, we're going to give Ken Samuelson a try again. If you'll stand by, whatever problems we may have ironed them out. If not, we'll be right on you. Ken, are you there? Thanks for joining us. Looks like we're standing by yet. Well, we'll work on it. NPR has this trouble all the time. So we'll hear from Abigail. Abigail comes to us from Gustavus, Alaska, just about every year. And when she can't get here, because we can't get here either, we're glad you came on the virtual tour this time, Abigail. Thanks for joining us again.
Well, thank you very much. It's always an honor to be here, and it's pretty incredible. Having grown up on the East Coast and eaten a lot of the crab that they were pulling up, that's a beautiful video. I have two pieces after I thank John, Jay, Amanda, and everyone else who puts this together. Virtual has to be incredibly difficult. A short piece from The Night Orion Fell, which is the book that brought me into this group. And that is that one of the rescuing pilots was Lieutenant Commander Ray Schultz. And I had the honor of being invited to his funeral at Arlington National Cemetery in October of just this past year. And so I wanted to read a little bit about that and then just a paragraph from the book. I read this because these two men understood and remembered exactly the same moment 23 years later, that deep and inscrutable place where life can meet death. In this particular instance, it didn't for either one of them, but both have seen it too close up. As Schultz approached the rear of the boat from the bow, Larry turned his head, looked up over his right shoulder at the helicopter. The two men fixed a glance frozen in time, an instantaneous scrutiny of situation and relationship each would remember and spontaneously imitate 23 years later. Larry sat in my living room imitating his own actions as he told me. Schultz described them by phone, and as he turned his head away from the speaker, his voice faded. Unconsciously, Schultz mimed the behavior of the man he had been about to save those many years earlier. Larry fastened his eyes into the pilot's, someone staring straight at him, into his eyes, into his life, gonna save him. And Larry watched the entire video of Ray Schultz's funeral at Arlington, which his wife had kindly put together since their son had COVID and couldn't make it to his own father's service. The other one I would like to read to you is a poem that I wrote. I started reading once going back to Nova Scotia. I was reading I picked up a book called Mariner's Weather, and well worth it, although I think I need to be a meteorologist to totally comprehend it. But this prose poem is based on the beginning of my reading of that book. Air and sea, we bottom fish of Earth's surface, live indifferent to our ocean of air. We, bottom fish of the atmosphere, scour the floor for food, farms that give us grain, ranches, beef, oceans, fish, our ancient ancestors from the sea. We hope draggers, be they plows or nets, don't destroy land. We hope no garbage swirling above, beside, or below drifts or pollutes our skin and cells. It was calm when I walked to the docks this morning. Now the wind blows more than gently. But I see no whitecaps yet. The nor'easter comes. Ships in harbor are safe, but that's not what they are built for. Sailors, be safe and come home. I shall walk up the hill to fix supper for the children who wait. Wait for their supper, wait for their father and brothers and uncles to come home. Snow comes horizontally. The air moves as does the sea, but we do not see the action of the air. A fine sailor senses the fluid action of air and sea, for his life and the life of his boat depend on it. A nor'easter churns weather counterclockwise to bring storms from the north to the Maritimes and New England. They blow varicolored autumn across fields and roads, slam rain to rattle windows, send drafts through homes, blow waves onto the streets of Scituate or the houses of Peggy Cove. Whitecaps go this way, then that, as they shake the sails and lines. Take a hunk of bread, your meal for the day, if you can stomach swallowing and keeping it. Head into the waves. Pray the wind does not rip all boom sails or lines. Pray we do not get close to the rocks of Yarmouth. It was calm when I walked, it was calm when I walked to the docks this morning. The nor'easter bangs on my walls and windows now. Sailors, be safe and come home to us.
Thank you.
Well, Thank you, Abigail. It's nice to hear that from the comfort of our warm houses in a lovely winter night out here on the coast of Oregon. So thanks for bringing those to us. Thanks for joining us. All right, the news I get is that Ken's going to join us, and there they are. How good to see you guys.
Tough
Welcome
one.
back.
Not sure what
We're
happened.
live from New York.
Technical difficulties. Sorry.
It's not my fault. It's not her fault either. Yeah, we this is a song called "This Ragged Shore," and it sort of was inspired by a book I read that 200 years ago, sea voyages would last 2 to 3 years, and if you were shipwrecked, you would be it'd be another 2 years or so before anybody knew of your fate. And it's a lot different now. But when I fished in Alaska, I was on a shrimp boat that hit a rock, submerged rock, and almost sunk. And there's nothing more terrifying. So I'm writing this as a song imagining a sailor's last thoughts. This ragged shore. I sailed the sea since I was young, beneath the moon and stars, into the sun. I've been wherever the great whales blow. I called my home the blue meadow, and I'll not sail these seas no more. Lay me to rest on this ragged shore. This brigantine would spear the stars, her moonlit sails would light the dark. Into the wind she'd dip and glide, but she can't fight the black rock night. And I'll not sail my ship no more. Lay me to rest on this ragged shore. The cauldron sky, the dagger reef, the red dawn stains the bloody sea. Here now I lie, tattered and torn. No more will I e'er fight these storms. No more will I e'er fight these storms. The one I love, so far away, she waits for me Nantucket Bay. I remember when we danced all night, and in the morning sun she held me tight. and I'll not see my love no more. Lay me to rest on this ragged shore. No, I'll not see my love, dear Lord. Lay me to rest on this ragged shore.
Thanks for your patience.
Well, thanks you guys. Gee, that was just lovely. Thanks for your patience and seeing that through. What a lovely tune to come to us here and clear from New York. That still kind of amazes me. So from closer to home out on the other coast, John Van Amerongen, who's one of the reasons we have a Fisher Poets gathering, because it was he who put in the pages of Alaska Fisherman's Journal some of the earliest Fisher poetry that we ever, well, the first Fisher poetry we got to know years ago, when we gathered those people up and invited them to Astoria, and if it weren't for Van Ham, we might not have a Fisher Poets gathering at all. Anyway, Doreen and I say hello and thanks for coming.
Hey, Doreen. Hi. Hi, John. You guys hear me? Are you picking me up all right?
You sound good.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice to be here, and be great to be in Astoria with everybody, that's for sure. I have a song I want to sing in Easter. In the late 80s, I was in Dutch Harbor, and I was staying at the bunkhouse for a crab processing plant, and we ate and we had our breakfast with these two kids from Stockton, California, and they had worked in the meat processing business there, and they decided they were going to come to Alaska because there was no place to spend any money, and so great. And so I talked to them, and they said, when we get back to Stockton, we're going to have more money than we've ever had in our lives, and it's just going to be wonderful. And then they said, but, I'd really like to be on a crab boat because, we're working 16, 18 hours a day, and these guys go out and they come back and sit at the dock, and the crab boat's full of crab, the boat's full of Apelio crab, hundreds of thousands of pounds of it, and they make big money. If I could just get one on one of those boats, I'd be in Fat City. It would be great. And so this is a song about a guy in a processing plant who really gets a chance to get on a crab boat and in Dutch Harbor, and meets a guy at the Elbow Room, famous bar there, and gets a shot at it. And sometimes you get what you ask for. So that's what this story is all about. Darts one night at the Elbow Room. I was fresh out of school, working on the beach from midnight till the afternoon. My back was strong and my mind was weak, though it seemed all right to me to pack my boots and rain gear for a trip to the Bering Sea, where you scoop the ocean's riches, you just pull them aboard for free. Asked if I could, sure as hell I would take a job on the Bering Sea. Now Jake was a grizzly engineer on the Crabber Arctic Cross. For a round or two he could get me aboard, he knew the old deck boss. When I quit my job at the Westward plant, I was giddy, I was free. Though I didn't have much, I was leaving Dutch for a job on the Bering Sea, where you scoop the ocean's riches, just pull 'em aboard for free. He asked if I could, said I would take a job on the Bering Sea. was 100 feet with as many pots piled high. I climbed aboard and we headed toward the cribs under blackened sky. I said a prayer, a beam priest rock, there was nowhere now to flee. Like it or not, what I wanted I got, I was bound for the Bering Sea. But wind was blowing harder now, we were listing toward the lee. And Jake said, just you wait there, boy, till we get to the Bering Sea. Yeah, the wind was blowing harder now, we were listing toward the lee. And Jake said, just you wait there, boy, till we get to the Bering Sea. Well, 12 hours out, we were idling down, it was time to set our gear. I was chopping bait, filling jars, trying my best to hear what the mate was screaming through the howling wind. It made no sense to me, coming out of that wave-drenched speaker on the deck that was full of the Bering Sea. It made no sense to me, coming out of that wave-drenched speaker on the deck that was full of the Bering Sea. Well, his words came clear when from the rear I was clipped by a shifting pot. 6 by 6, 600 pounds, those suckers weigh a lot. Now it pinned me against the chopper, and as the blades worked on my glove, well, I was ready to pack. I couldn't wait to get back to the short drop that I loved. But the blades were getting closer now, they hacked my fingers 3, chopped them into mincemeat for the crabs in the Bering Sea. Yeah, the blades were getting closer now, they hacked my fingers 3, chopped them into mincemeat for the crabs in the Bering Sea. Gotta watch that bait chopper. Well, back at the bar in the elbow room, what stories I can tell of fingers lost on the Arctic cross on a crab trip bound for hell. Well, it's been 6 years, but to order 3 beers, it takes 2 hands, you see. Oh yeah, 3. A reminder of my foolish love for life on the Bering Sea. 'Cause you risk your life for the riches, nothing comes for free. Oh, the money looks nice, but you better think twice, for you fish on the Bering Sea. Thank you very much, John and Amanda. All you pals out there on the water, here and there. We'll see you in Astoria, I hope. Smooth sailing.
Lovely. Thank you,
Good.
Astoria.
Thanks for coming, John. Thanks for bringing that kid back to us. We love hearing from him. So next up is Colin Kaferle. Colin is a fellow I just met this year. He's been crabbing up in Puget Sound and comes from the Orcas Island country there, and really thrilled that you've joined us this year, Colin. Hope you will for years to come. Give us a poem or two.
Thanks a lot, John. Yeah, my name is Colin Kaferle, and I fish commercially for Dungeness crab on the FV Pinky B with my friend and captain, my captain, Em and Adam. Hey, kid. On the waters of the Salish Sea. And I'm going to read some poems inspired by those times. This first one is called For Sarah. Standing astern the deck of a crab boat in the Georgia Strait and gazing across the Boundary Pass, I think of a girl somewhere in that pale dawn just now rising, and of me rocking, like so many fishermen before me, up and down on lonely seas. This is entitled What Came Before. Lying in wait, we can see round the point to where the current and the wind have already met, lifting the water into white-capped teeth that froth and grind and spit. There is nothing left but to prepare, bait the remaining pots, take one last piss, and zip up tight while we are still on the outside of that fury. For now, we're running in, and Cowlitz is howling, as is the voice of Robert Plant from the little speaker that rolls back and forth on the wheelhouse roof. And it's as if there was never any time but now, that this is the whole of existence, this bay, this boat, this friendship, as we chop and slash through every pot, holding fast, holding close, until it's done, and we are clear, left to yell with high hearts that it's over, that we made it. And later back in town, the people come and go without a word. No hands to shake, no eyes to meet. No ex-lovers come to take pictures of the heroes. Not today, boys. Just the sound of crows and bad breaks that turn us back towards home. He to a voice that asks, what took so long? And I to a cabin, dark and cold. This is a haiku entitled Prayer to Mount Baker. O snowy mountain, watch over my friend and I as we go to sea. Crab fishing in America, Wild Bill. Wild Bill lays like an old walrus, belly out, eyes closed at 8 a.m. outside the dock store. He becomes oddly lucid when he speaks to the women passing by and growls at the men. It's said that he was once quite handsome and took to calling himself Sweet William. But wild is how most know Bill. We should be killing things that swim, he would lament while ashore and talk about bait, clams, and squid, the good shit, or just quietly watch the water. Once, speaking about a failed romance, he reared back and barked like a dog, affirming his freedom and good fortune, as if he had dodged a heart-shaped bullet. That's how I like to remember this place. Howling with reckless passion, running rich to the other side with a jug of plum wine and someone you want to kiss, always under the most impossible sky. The last poem I'm going to read tonight is entitled Lucky. Staring at the Vancouver skyline miles away and thinking of the people sleeping between its buildings, I wish for them, as I have, to look far from the deck of a boat and feel free. Thank you guys so much, and such a pleasure to be reading and listening to all these other amazing artists, poets, musicians.
Colin, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for paying attention and writing those poems for us. We'll look forward to hearing a lot more of it. Good. Well, I thought I'd take a turn, and I'm trying to talk Doreen into joining me for this, but she's a little reluctant to. This is a true story. The names of the protagonists have been changed, and it reminds me a little bit of where we came from. It's from some time ago. I'm a set netter, and my family set nets up there in Bristol Bay, called Kelly Keeps Fishing. Kelly pulled his parka hood against the driven spray. High water hadn't been too good, 800 pounds all day. He tugged his beard, he scratched his head. He wished he were back home in bed. Another night on the Nushagak, 5 more hours until low slack. The night was gray, the skyline black. He turned to Pete and said, let's throw the pick and wait a bit. This net needs going through. We'll let some tide fall off the shelf and see what this wind's up to. So Peter let the Danforth go. In the ebbing tide, the skiff bucked and rolled. Pete took cork line, Kelly leads. They stacked the net, then Kelly said, oh, I suppose we'll just keep fishing. Keep fishing's what they done since June, as rising suns and rising moons dragged tide and salmon through the bay. They'd fished all night. They'd fished all day through winds southwest to 20 knots, southeast with rain, still days so hot they sweltered in their waders. When fog descended, cold and damp, their bunks lay empty back at camp. Tedious, Slim as it might get, Kelly kept the set net wet. And sometimes when the tide was low and Kelly still had weeks to go until the final sockeyes caught, he missed his wife a lot. He knew she labored hard down south, keeping up with every mouth of every child they'd had each May just before he went away. His wife, before she'd switched careers, could pick all night, could koozie gear, could keep her steady in the blow, then sleep still beside him in the bunk below while gentle rain swept the decks above. There it was they'd first made love, and tonight, in the skiff, as black rain fell, as white caps broke from every swell, Kelly said again. By dark the boys were good and cold. A bin of sockeye in the hold begged to be delivered as the Jackie M passed by outside, all deck lights, smoke, and driven spray. It was the best sight that they'd seen all day. They chased her on the rolling tide while in the bow Pete shivered. At the tiller, Kelly shivered too, and when at last they pulled up to the tender, Kelly climbed on board while Pete pitched off the day's reward. It wasn't much, but paid some bills, kept the bellies full and the fuel tanks filled. Pete hosed her down and gassed her up. Gratefully, he grabbed a cup of coffee in the galley. It was good for his morale. He'd been feeling a little whipped just then. Kelly, in the pilot house, still thinking of his lovely spouse, said, "Skip, how about that radio? Think that I could have a go? I'd like to call Deeny." So while rain beat the window panes and winds southeast whipped the weather vanes, and the skipper tried to be discreet, keeping his log and tickets neat, the table and the dashboard clean, Kelly raised Deeny. "How are you, love? It's me," he said. "How's everything at the old homestead? We're wrapping up here. It's been a good season, but sure slow now. So if for any reason you need me home a little early, to help with the house, the boys, and girl, I could catch a plane on Tuesday." Across 2,000 miles of atmosphere, her lovely voice arrived as clear as moonlight. "Keep fishing," was all she said. The skipper winced and shook his head, and Kelly went back out there. Yeah, that's a true story. So, well, got a lot of true stories here tonight. George Wilson's going to bring us one. George comes from, he's from Portland, of course, but he's done a lot of fishing in Scotland, and you ought to see the pictures and hear the stories. You will just now. George, how good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I've got a true story here. It's called Har and the Old Red Sandstone. It's kind of a fairy tale. Har, spelled H-A-A-R, Hotel Alpha Romeo, is a Scottish word for a particular sea fog which occurs between April and September on the East Coast. Meteorologically speaking, it is what happens when relatively warmer, moist air passes over the surface of the cold North Sea and condenses. It is then blown or drawn by convection currents to the shore, where it blankets the coast in an eerie, chilly, reality-altering ether. To experience it is to feel that it is alive. It scrambles over the cliffs and sea crags and creeps up the grassy braes. It fills the sea caves and slides through the great rock arches of the Bow Fiddle and Whale's Moo, which are the most prominent landmarks of the headland where my village of Pernockie sits above the North Sea. It muffles the sound of the waves crashing on the shore, and it dampens the cries of the gulls, kittiwakes, and fulmars nesting in rookeries by the sea caves on the old red sandstone cliffs, geologically so old that they don't contain fossils. Think of that, older than any life. The Har and the old red sandstone are well acquainted, or weel acquaint, as we say. What is the passing of time to the old red sandstone and the Har as they embrace in their soft caress once more? There must have been a first time. Will there be a last? There is a graveyard to the west of the village, atop, as they say in fairy tales, atop the cliff, And when the Har rolls in, it becomes a half-obscured theatrical set of granite headstones and marbled monoliths, markers for the dead, now dry iced by the Har. Crows perch on the headstones, curlews call from the shore, larks confused by the fog, still spiral up into the heavens searching for the sun. The old people, well, people are born old in Pornocky anyway, but the old people said, well, in truth, my great auntie Jeanie said, that when the Har rolled in, that you might see on the path on the cliff above the shore by the graveyard, that you might catch a glimpse of the ancestors. Taking a walk, a stroll, a perambulation through the veil of the Har. Because magic happens when the old red sandstone kisses the Har. You see the old folk, the ancestors, they like to stretch their legs after sic a lang lie down, my great auntie Jeanie said. Then she cackled, like old crones always do in fairy tales. And if you walked back to the harbour, through the village, past the bed sheets and clothes pegged on the line strung between poles atop the cliff, to the house where my great aunt Jeanie lived, then maybe you could see through the Har the great fleet of sailboats, christened Zulus at their conception and construction in the time of the Zulu Wars. 100 boats crammed into that tiny harbour, their 9-man crews readying them for the upcoming Yarmouth herring season. Legendary sailing craft, 80 feet long with a huge mainmast of Norwegian spruce. So big around, the old people said, that you couldn't encompass it with your arms. So tall, the old people said, that when the Har rolled in, you couldn't see the top. And maybe, just maybe, if you were in Uganic Bay on Kodiak Island at the time of a salmon closure and observed the Har creep along Uganic, if you were in Uganic Bay at the time of a salmon closure and observed the Har creep along Uganic Island, then across the pass and slide up the bay on the incoming tide, and roll smokily between and over and through the alders and birches and cottonwoods of the village islands. And you might see Wendy tending her garden beds or picking raspberries on the brae there. And if the Har ever rode up the Long Island Sound and over Block Island and up into Point Judith, then through the Vale you might see a tall, broad-shouldered, slightly hunched figure tuning a bouzouki and telling tales and laughing at his own jokes. And if that's you and you did see John Campbell, say hello from me. For it is true what the old people say, that when the Har kisses the old red sandstone, magic happens. Everything is altered. Nothing remains the same. Time stands still. Time collapses. All times mingle in the Har. When it rolls in, you can smell the ocean of your youth, taste its salt, and be at peace. Har, H-A-A-R, Hotel Alpha, Alpha, Romeo. Thank you. Back to you, John.
That was so good.
Yeah.
You gotta mute yours.
Thanks for casting a spell for us there, George. Thanks for taking us to Scotland, and thanks for bringing Campbell out for us on that. You know, we all miss him, and we're glad you found him in the Har there for us. Yeah, well, I think Moe might be with you nearby, and we're sure anxious to hear from you too, Moe. So, welcome. Thanks for joining us. It's so good to see you.
That was quite an ambush emotionally.
Yeah.
Kind of tanks my whole composure. George has been writing away, and Yeah. Okay.
He didn't tell you he was going to do that, maybe.
Oh, no, I don't know. He's a silent mon. He's got a silent mon. He doesn't speak except to you. And then to tell me that I sound like Wooly from The Simpsons. I miss you all so much. And I have to say, John, one of the things that made it easier for me to show up today is that you said it's just coming on to say hi. I'm just so furious about not being able to be with you all. And for those people who think about these things like the stars, I'm a Cancer. You know, I was born under the sign of the crab. And so I like to dig into my little hole as much as you guys might not believe this and hide when I'm really hurting. And I just didn't want to come this year because I just don't want to not be with you. And George, you really did tank me there. Most of what I wanted to tell y'all was I got a day job, which is just shocking. And it's at a hospital. I work at a hospital. I work in the warehouse, and I'm kind of like the tender. So I go around the warehouse with my little boat, which is a cart, a small cart. It's like maybe like a 40, 50-foot tender. You go around and you get all the stuff, and then you go around to all the rooms, the supply rooms, and you walk past all the people that didn't get vaccinated and that are sitting in there and having to have lots of supplies delivered to them so that they can get back home to their families. And then I come back and then I do it again, just like a tender, just running around the hospital. And the funny thing is no one at the hospital can understand my metaphor or in my life. And I just was like, I can't wait till FisherPoets when I can say, yeah, I got a job. I'm the tender at the hospital and I bring the supplies. It's not as friendly as the tender in some ways. And the journeys are not, they're not fraught. Although getting a day job, I have had to learn how to, fart with stealth, because that's not something on a boat, there's always equipment. No one can hear anything. People talk openly about rain gear farts. You kind of get one in there and then your rain gear pushes in and it blows the fart up in your face. And yeah, I have to talk about farts so I don't keep weeping. But so I guess what I figured out how to do is just like the cart wheels are loud. So I just do a lot of crop dusting is what it's called when you walk along. Anyway, I asked the guy why he hired me because my resume has actually made people laugh. My list of jobs. And he said, well, I hired you because, sometimes we get calls from the nurses or from somebody and they're like, we need this thing. And you're moving all through the hospital and you're representing the MSO, Material Services Operation. That's the MVMSO. And he said, well, I hired you because you're an MC. That's what you're an MC. You can talk to anybody. And also you worked on a fishing boat, so you're pretty tough and you've seen a lot of stuff, which is pretty great. I'm being trained by a guy named Randy who has been on the job for 42 years. And he spends a lot of time saying things like, time for a cup of coffee. Take a load off. Take a break. You need to take your breaks, which is very different than working on a tender or a fishing boat or anything like that. So I just kind of wanted to update y'all on that. But, I drive back and forth from work and I listen to the news and the news is not good, y'all. The news is bad. And I remember in 2003 when we kind of had a little bit of a war of aggression against Iraq. And I just want to be clear that I'm not saying anything mean about anybody who is in the armed forces. I just don't think that we should go to war at all. And I sang this song. And I was thinking about this song and I sang it on the way home from work again. Because, even the Epic of Gilgamesh is one of the oldest stories that's ever been written down that people have found. I'm sure there's others out there, but Gilgamesh, he was a king who loved conquest, and his people said, Gilgamesh walks the earth and we are the soles of his sandals. He just doesn't care. He just always wants to go to war and have more and more glory. And it's a hard lesson for a king to learn. And I'm so tired of being the people that the king has to learn from. I'm so tired of living in a city where people get shot and killed for standing up against that kind of brutality. And, sailors felt that way too. A top man and an afterguard out walking one day. Says the top man to the afterguard, I'm in for to parade. For the lives of all sailors and the wrongs of all men. And whatever I to parade for, you must answer amen. First I'll parade for the boatswain and his little stick. He shouts out all hands and gives us a lick. He strikes many a brave fellow and kicks him amain. And may the devil double, triple damn him, says the afterguard. Amen. Then let's pray for the purser who gives us to eat. Spewburgoo, rank butter, and musty horse meat. And Weevely old biscuits that he gets the game. And may the devil double, triple damn him, says the afterguard. Amen. Then we'll parade for the officers who hold up our due. They owe 3 years' money and our prize wages too. Let them fight their own wars over and over again. And may the devil double, triple damn them, said the afterguard. Amen. Yeah, it's hard to sing when your heart's just been broken by your husband. But miss you guys.
Mo, thanks for coming and bringing your whole heart with you. We rely on that. So thanks everybody for joining us. It's so encouraging to see our friends that we haven't seen in person in a couple of years now. We're pretty sure and pretty optimistic we'll be able to get together next year. We might have been able to pull it off this, but it was just not clear that was the case 4 months ago when we got started. So we thought we'd be careful. Anyway, this is a remarkable thing to see you coming from all over the country, and thanks for being here tonight. We're going to take a little break here shortly, and then at 8 o'clock, the Fisher Poets Gathering will resume, and we'll see you there. There's a lot of activity. If you go to the webpage, there's a lot of stuff happening tomorrow. Starting at 9 o'clock in the morning, there are a number of workshops and presentations all through the day, free to the public. You just got to sign up there. And we do have a reading tomorrow. A lot of folks are going to remember John Campbell, our dear friend we miss. Going to read some of his stuff tomorrow. Campbell's Last Set at 4 o'clock. We also are going to miss Mick Hassan. He's our sound guy. We lost him this year too, and he was cheerful and helpful, and he's crossed the bar. So thanks all for being here. It's good to see you. We'll catch you again in about 20 minutes.
And we're back.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Holly Hughes. I'm the MC for the second set of the 25th Fisher Poets Gathering. Oh, John, I can hardly believe that. And our second virtual pandemic edition. Like John said, I know we all hoped we'd be back in person this year, but we're so grateful to be able to gather even virtually again. We're all here to celebrate commercial fishing, friendships, creativity and poetry, prose and song, and resilience too, especially these last few years. I've been a participant at Fisher Poets since the very first year when a handful of us gathered at the Wet Dog the last weekend in February 1998. It's a testament to the commitment and resiliency of the Fisher Poet Gathering crew that this has continued to happen every year. As you can imagine, trying to round up and herd 100 Fisher Poets isn't for the faint of heart. So let's have a round of applause for John, Jay, and the whole crew who has been keeping it going all these years. And the last 2 years especially, we couldn't do it without Amanda, Jamie, and her able Oregon Sea Grant crew working literally behind the screens as our own techno wizard. And I'll be thanking all the sponsors at the end. So we've got a great lineup ahead and we're eager to cast off the lines. I'll call out the name of each reader and where they're from. They'll introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their connection to fishing, and they'll take it from there. So leading us off is Pat Dixon from Olympia, who fished Cook Inlet and is celebrating the release of his memoir just out this week called Waiting to Deliver. And I'm hoping he'll read from it and tell us a little bit more about it. Please welcome Pat Dixon.
Thank you, Holly. The book has been almost 15 years in writing. I've written a lot of the pieces in it, and I have to say Holly was instrumental in helping make this book get into the world. And so I gill knitted on Cook Inlet for 20 years, and this book is, when I look back at it now and read it now, I wonder how I lived through it. So it takes me from being just an incredibly ignorant beginner to somebody who actually could make a career out of being a fisherman. So I'm really happy that it's in the world. And if you want to read an excerpt and possibly order it through an email to me, go to Patrick Dixon, that's Dixon, .net, and look at the right-hand tab has books for sale, and it's the only one on there. So I'm going to keep that part short because I don't want to use up more than my allotted 5 minutes. But I have to say that, George, I really, really, really enjoyed your reading. Veronica and I both listened to it, and it was amazing. And it's no wonder that Moe was in tears. And I think that's what I love about Fisher Poets is somebody asked me, what would you tell someone who was going to watch for the first time? And my comment was, sit down, grab a beer, and listen to everybody, because somebody will blow you away. And George, you're the first one of us, I think, that's done that so far. Not that anybody else was bad, but yours was exceptional. So, and Moe, I have to say, I agree. Though the news in the world is bad, and with that in mind, I picked my first poem, not mine. This poem is by Ilya Kaminsky, who is a Ukrainian American, and I just wanted to take a moment to think about what's happening in the Ukraine. We lived happily during the war, by Ilya Kaminsky. And when they bombed other people's houses, we protested, but not enough. We opposed them, but not enough. I was in my bed, around my bed, America was falling. Invisible house by invisible house by invisible house. I took a chair outside and watched the sun. In the 6th month of a disastrous reign, in the house of money, in the street of money, in the city of money, in the country of money, our great country of money, we, forgive us, lived happily during the war. So yeah, do what you can, do what you have to. I want to read the title piece from the book. It's called Waiting to Deliver, and it has a very different feel than what I just read. And this is a celebration of fishing. Waiting to deliver. On the good day, when boats return home, low in the water, holds full, nets wrapped around salmon rolled on the reel after picking half the net and laying it back out while the fish keep hitting, then running to the other end and doing it again all day long. No time for breaks, a sandwich, or even water. Your face, beard, and glasses streaked black by gurry, dotted white with scales, back aching, fingers and wrists sore. You find energy reserves. Threads of adrenaline buried deep sustain you until you've made the run home and toss a line to the boat you tie behind, the last of a dozen hanging off the port stern next to a matching group tied to the starboard side of the tender, taking fish anchored in the middle of the river. This day of donkey work, this day of absolution, isn't over, won't be for hours. At the back of the queue, you know you'll be here past dinner, past dark, maybe past dawn. You'll eat a baked potato and a red salmon garnished with lemon, onion, and butter, less than 2 hours from the time you plucked it alive from the sea. You'll wash it down with a cold beer from the cooler, watch the sunset, and think how this is the best, most complete life you can imagine. Salt air cools as shadows lengthen, and the water changes from blue to black. You trade bunk time with your deckhand and fall asleep before your head hits the pillow. The smack of a boat hook on the bow wakes you both as the next boat in line cuts you all loose to go deliver, and those of you still tethered together like a serpent in the glare of arc lights work to move up, fighting the river's flow, pulled and yanked off course by boats fore and aft, bumping throttles forward, neutral, reverse, trying not to ram the one ahead of you, hoping the one behind you does the same. Your deckhand fends off as you swing too close to the vessels sleeping to starboard, until the lead boat tosses a line around the tender's cleat again, and you all slide back in the current like a sigh. Engine after engine goes silent. Lines creak around the cleats as they stretch taut. Your crew slips into the bunk while you settle back in the skipper's chair, light a smoke, and sip a cold cup of coffee. You're still waiting, waiting to deliver. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Holly. And
Oh, thank you, Pat. That was so beautiful. Oh, my goodness. Both the Ilya Kaminsky poem. Thank you for sharing that. I've been thinking about that poem too. And wonderful to hear that chapter read in your voice, Pat. I've read it many times on the page recently and really loved hearing you read it. So many beautiful lines in it. Slide back into the current like a sigh was one of my favorites. So thank you. Good. And next up, we have Lou Beaudry from McCall, Idaho, who's going to be sharing some music with us. So please welcome Lou.
Hi, y'all. Am I live?
You sure are. And I'm
Okay.
queued up with your recording when you're ready.
Okay. I fished commercially in Alaska for 42 years in Bristol Bay and Prince William Sound. And when I retired about 10 years ago, people started asking me, do I miss it? Well, honestly, there's much about commercial fishing that I absolutely do not miss. And I found that my wife is willing to put up with me being around all the time. But of course I miss it. After so long, it's hard not to. A couple years before retiring, after retiring, I figured no one else was stepping up to do it, so I wrote my own retirement song. So this is Handing Off the Wheel. Thanks for watching, and hope you all enjoy it. It's important at the changing of the watch that the new guy, he's awake and he's in touch. That he knows where you're going, where you've been. His vessel's fate is riding upon him. Let him know what's going on. If there's a dog leg up ahead, get him settled with some coffee before you go down to bed. 'Cause it's the middle of the darkness and you're tired to the bone. This trip is almost over. Someone's gotta get us home. I guess every dog has his day. Old memories fade away. Everyone goes down with that deal. This year I'll be handing off the wheel. I'll hand it off, I'll quietly slip it, but a piece of my heart goes with it. But I won't miss that wet southeaster, I won't miss those bad luck, I won't miss those cold wet sleeves or those sweaty extra tufts. I won't miss those late deliveries with the weather building tough, or Dave Grumman on the radio. I won't miss it, not that much. But it's time now for me to step down. It's time for him to make a start. This year, when those lines are cast off, with him goes a piece of my heart. But Christian, he's been with me, must be 9 or 10 years now. Knows this boat as well as I do, and he knows Prince William Sound. I wish that I could teach him everything I've learned, but this kind of knowledge, it must be earned. I'll hand it off, I'll quietly slip it, but a piece of my heart goes with it. I'll pass it on, no need to rip it, but a piece of my heart goes with it. Oh, I'll miss that morning jumper show with my hands wrapped round a cup and playing music in the top house when we're all rafted up. I'll miss those foggy mornings when the sky sits closer to the earth, and I'll miss that satisfaction tying back up in our berth. How I'll miss those cold clear nights when the northern lights are lit. Yes, I've been blessed by Lady Luck, and after 40 years of fishing, that's enough. Every dog has his day. everyone goes down with that deal. This year I'll be handing off the wheel. I'll hand it off, I'll quietly slip it, but a piece of my heart goes with it. I'll pass it on, no need to rip it, but a piece of my heart goes with it.
Thank you, Lou. What a beautiful tribute. What a beautiful farewell song. I suspect many of us on this Zoom call can relate to that. 40 years of fishing, and yeah, what we all miss about it. So thank you for capturing that so beautifully. Okay, next up is a neighbor of mine, Gary Keister, who lives in Port Hadlock. And I know from listening to many of his stories and poems over the years that he has a rich fishing heritage and a lot to share with us. So please welcome Gary Keister.
Good evening. What an emotional time. When it was announced we were going to do this virtually again this year, I thought, what a great escape for a couple nights from the pandemic. And now on the eve of this great event, we're dealing with atrocities in Ukraine that is just hard to imagine in our lifetime. Our hearts go out to all those people. I started fishing when I was 8 years old. I threw my first pair of hip boots on my grandfather's seiner in Anacortes, and that was the start of a love for the sea and the love for salmon. So my first poem is entitled Salmon Seiner. Flood tide pulling strong and hard, nets heavy. Early gold sun shadows glisten off scraggly Sitka cypress. Crew up before dawn, defying bone-chilling glacier winds, blowing through layers of wool and rubber. The icy Black Sea displays no trace of life as crewmen pull ferociously on strained hemp lines, the seiner heaving and groaning. Crew tugs at the web as it rolls over the steely, pyrrhic power block, swinging precariously from atop the boom. A tall, lanky kid balances gracefully on the edge of the turntable, meticulously stacking Spanish corks in perfect symmetrical rows. Out 50 fathoms, the sockeye jumps along the cork line as dozens fin in the heart of the Seine. Quickly, the emotions build as a silvery salmon emerges, gilled in the web, and another, and another. Tension mounts as the bunt end is dragged aboard. All hands rush to the bulwarks. There are thousands, a silver horde of the finest blood-red sockeye. This poem is written about a highline Native American fisherman out of Hoona in Southeast Alaska, in the icy straits. It's called The Laundry. Wise Joe White stands wide atop the fog and shrouded bridge, his purseine adrift, awaiting the flood tide in Middle Pass. Currents and eddies are fierce in the laundry, and setting too early, the turbulence and hurly-burlies will drag his precious net under, wrapping and wringing it up like a dish rag. Joe studies the white water as it swirls and churns, hemorrhaging energy as dense, creamy foam clings to the barnacle-laden rocks. When abruptly the foam moves seaward, he grabs the wheel, signals crew, and spins the Jericho about at full throttle, waving a deckman to yank the Canadian release, discharging the 250 fathom seine into the torrid waters. Each crewman prepares for grueling high-speed work, eager to make another set on this perfect tide, expecting to plug their hold with humpies and silver bright dog salmon. And I'll end with a little poem called The Ebb. He visited the rock on the stormy, stony shoreline as long as he could remember. It never appeared to change, yet it did, little by little at each ebb and flood, as harsh seas whittled out the perfect pew for a boy and a granddad. Now he gazes solo, regarding the curling white water, whispering beneath his black hip boots, revealing how the sea had fashioned him, sailing with the man from Puget Sound to the Gulf and out west to the unrelenting Bering Sea. Now, the water flows deliberately away as life ebbs, one particle at a time, evoking life's marvels and the significance of the coarse-grained granite, hosting the finest bits of life that encrusts body and soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. That was beautiful. That last one, especially, I love that sense of the generational movement in that. And oh, very touching. Thank you so much. Next up, we have, let's see, we have Jimmy Kasner coming to us from Newport, Oregon. So, and I believe he's got a song for us too. So please welcome Jimmy Kasner.
Good evening. I'm real glad to be here. Fished for 25 years, spent 16 years in the Bering Sea on catcher boats, pollock catcher boats. Tonight I'm doing a song about addiction and about enabling and about finding the courage sometimes and the strength to let go. It's a part of our life, and just wanted to share it. So I'll let you go. Made some bad decisions in my life, but I've always tried to do what I thought was right. I've held on to hope long after hope was gone. I've always said I could fix anything except the break of dawn. But I can't fix what's inside of you now. and I can't watch you while you're sinking down. I love you more than you will ever know, but I can't save you from yourself, so I've gotta let you go. I gotta let you go. They say the road to hell is paved with good intentions. My intentions regarding you, they have always been the best. But you and I both know it takes two to tango. And all this time I thought I was helping you, I was just dancing with myself. And I know I can't stop you going down this road you chose. I can't save you by myself, so I've gotta let you go. Whoa, I gotta let you go. And when you finally find your way back home, to where you're clean and free, you'll be standing proud and tall for all the world to see. I hope you will remember just how much you mean to me. I will always be your biggest fan, so please come visit me, 'cause my door is always open, coffee's always on. You can tell me all about it, and we can talk until the dawn. But right now I can't follow you into your private hell, so I will tell you again, I love you, and I wish you well. And I'll ask all of heaven's angels who watch over us below to always keep you in their sight, no matter where you go. My holding on's not helping you. This I've come to know. You've got to save yourself, but you can't do that until I let you go. Oh, I let you go. You know you've got to save yourself, but you can't do that until I let you go. I let you go. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, James, for what a beautiful, heartfelt, powerful song. Oh, you had me in tears, and I suspect many others as well. Thank you for writing so honestly and openly about addiction. Okay, exhaling now. And next up, we have Wilfred Wilson, who hails from Delta, British Columbia. And I'll let him introduce what he's going to be singing or speaking or reading about. Please welcome Wilfred Wilson.
Hi there. You don't want to hear me singing, I'll tell you that. But anyway, I got a couple poems here I'm going to recite. I've been contemplating this first one here for a few years here, and then last year when our world is kind of shrinking where we can fish, and we don't get together as much as we once were because we'd be scattered throughout province even, but mostly the coast. I'm what I call a lifer, fisher, commercial, 60 plus years here now, still active. Yeah, and I learned of another friend passing there last year. So when I was leaving to come home, this poem occurred to me, and I call it The Last Tie-Up. As the world shrinks for most fishers, memories surface of tales told, where the whole coast was open to fish. Men would talk of all the capes they'd fished on the coast in their lifetimes. For each successive generation, the natural world starts to shrink as the global world expands. As efficiency goes up and up, harvest numbers climb in each generation, peaking and then crashing, fished beyond sustainability. Realization, men seen throughout one's entire life, also diminish each year. As we gather in so few places open to fish, boats of friends tied up hundreds and hundreds of times over the decades. As one leaves port sailing home at season end, who will be the ones you will never see again? For we never know or admit that this cast-off could be the last. Not to have a retirement party, never to get the golden handshake. I do know I have not untied for the last time. I'm sure I'll be tying up a few more 100 times, Creator willing. For you see, I will not accept my last tie-up just yet. And, like I realize how fortunate the fishers in the Bay of Alaska are with, record-breaking years and possibly another one coming. But in British Columbia here, we're having some dire problems here, and it's doesn't look like it's going to be ending soon. But quite often, for me, when I come home from a holiday, or in this case here, the last time in Astoria in person, this poem occurred to me, and it's amazing that we have the contributions here from people from throughout the world, and so yeah, I touch upon this, and I'm acknowledging a couple of people here, and it'll get clear here. I call this two at the beginning, or the two J's. There were two at the start, could reach out and indeed touch you. Not to know some whom they were to meet from year to year, but most were known during a run of more than 2 decades. Door always open to those that could speak a word or two. Opportunities for others to meet, greet, and learn a thing or two. As now you see, I can even twirl a lariat. For there are not a lot whom can draw from as far year after year. Who would have guessed 2 sitting around a gear locker would open our hearts to the world? When they were firing a different cannon from the beach, heard close to halfway around the world, that proved the pen is indeed stronger than the sword, or how else would we be here? Okay, thanking you, and I look forward to hopefully being in person next year, and it looks like things are changing as far as this pandemic is concerned. So anyway, bye.
Thank you. What a wonderful tribute to the 2 J's. Oh, I love that. Yeah, and powerful poems, and a nice reminder that, the fisheries we're hearing from folks all over the world now, and some fisheries are struggling. And so we are all wanting to do what we can to support sustainability in fisheries as we go forward for the next generations. Okay, next up, coming all the way from Hawaii is Rich King. who's been a longtime Fisher poet and always has a wonderful, bright smile for us. Please welcome Rich.
Hi, Holly. I'm still sailing in Prince William Sound. There's no end in sight for me. But tonight, I would like to visit a transition that I made in 2007 from gill netting in Cook Inlet to gill netting in Bristol Bay.
Hey, Rich, before you go any further, can you hit your video? We want to see that bright smile.
How about?
There you go. You
Are
got
we back
it.
in business?
Yep, that looks good. Thank you.
Okay, right on. So in 2007, I made the transition from gill netting and Cook Inlet to Bristol Bay, and this poem is called Mayflower, the best looking girl in the leper colony. It happened in April. Can't remember the day that I made the decision to move to the Bay. At the library in Sitka, my finger hit send, not certain of things that might come round the bend. By far the excitement of seasons anew, where visions of big sets most likely come true. Can't be that much different from what I've been doing, in spite of the Iggy films I've been viewing. A 32-foot limit, I can fix that. My skill saw and sawzall, a zip and a zap. Then the mighty Mayflower, an old friend for years, shorter by 2 feet, eyes welled up in tears. What have I done? What was I thinking? This bow won't be fixed with caulking and chinking. And with her nose on the ground, a great gaping hole from the outside, I looked at my bunk in the forecastle. So I closed her with this screen and headed for home. And in spite of my family, I felt all alone. You've done it this time as 100 more, as you've done it this time, awake in my bed as 100 more problems pass through my head. I knew she'd be ugly, a terrible sight, but I sure didn't count on remorse in the night. A fiberglass nightmare. I might need a pro. Dreams of a hold full of First Nationals dough. Now the Mayflower's a snub nose. There's plenty around. I just never saw them in the inlet or sound. They were really quite common when I got to the Bay. Some half as wide as they're long, you could say. There was dented in gunnels, hanging old worn out tires and windows of plywood held by gray tape and wires, pitted aluminum, never been treated, and fiberglass patches from a boat war defeated. So when a one-eyed tenderman, missing teeth from his grin, took the lines from my deckhand and blew some smoke to the wind, and he says, "I never seen you before, your boat's looking good." I think I felt better, at least I thought that I should. That night on the hook, I stared at the ceiling, I put it behind me, that terrible feeling that she wasn't the vessel that she used to be, that she might not perform when we get out to sea. Instead, I look inward at what makes her a jewel, how much she carries, her consumption of fuel, her wheelhouse and flush deck that set her apart. She's a hard-working drift boat, and she's got a good heart. Okay, 2 years later, in the noosh. The deckhand was Lou. The season it blew from the southwest with a vengeance from hell. Me and Lou were a dreaming as the seas were a screaming of the girls at the Lahaina Hotel. Cold beans in a lump because my stove heater's pulse pump. Gave it up at the boatyard in spring. Washed down with some coffee. Warmed up to 160 on the block of the Jimmy that morning. So Lou says to me, "You wait and see. I'm going to get rich salmon fishing." Says I with a smile, "Gonna take you a while. For now, for good weather, try wishing. For nothing is finer than those girls from Lahaina when they dance in grass skirts in the moonlight. But if fish we catch not, we will soon be forgot, 'cause it's the money they want in the night." Well, we bobbed on the hook through the night. The boat shook, hoping for calm the next day. And of course it didn't come, never will, said by some. It's just the Bristol Bay way. Still, when daylight began, we ran south, dumped her in at the head of the turtle off schooners. The clear muddy was rough, but not quite enough to get us to leave any sooner. But at the turn of the tide, the westerly died, and for a minute she flattened like ice. And the reds came in jags. We got us 6 bags, and Lou says, "Man, that was Nushagak nice." And she roared in from the east like a willow beast, a 20-foot tide charging north. And the period closed. How much fish, no one knows. And they got to the river, of course. Well, later that night at Clark's Point, tucked in tight, when I anchored, we found a surprise. Tucked away in my pack, a small bottle of Jack. And that night, we each told some lies. A celebration for naught, 25 southwest we got, as we kept at it each day. Lou and I on the deck of this old floating wreck, fishing for cannery pay. So we finished that season without any reason to celebrate a glorious ending. And of course, borrowed more from the company store and sure didn't have nothing for spending. But I got no complaint about the person I ain't, and I'll give you a little advice. In the end, it's the ride makes you happy inside, so be content when it's Nushagak nice. And as for those girls with the flowers and curls in their hair at the Lahaina Hotel, well, they'll have to stand by with some saner guy, but next season I'll be richer than hell. Okay, that's what I got. Oh, and Lou, I can tell you, as far as I can tell, Christian is doing great with your boat. He's a good man.
Oh, thank you, Rich. That's great. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful to just all the messages that are, I love the sense of humor and wit that comes through in your work. So thank you, and enjoy Hawaii, enjoy the sun for all of us here. Okay, next up we have Harry Moore from Palmer, Alaska, and he has some music for us.
Hey, am I on there, Holly?
You are.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, hello to everybody. I grew up fishing out in the bay. Started out setting it, and when I was a little kid, my folks have been fishing the bay since '48 and taking it forward from there. It's been a long haul. Now I'm drifting, and to hear Rich talk about the Mayflower, if it's the same Mayflower I'm thinking of, I've seen that boat. And that's no lie what he described there. That was really something, Rich. Really made me bust my gut. Well, here we go. I love the bay so much, just like many other people do. And whenever you come down to the end of the season, it's your last day, coming up on your last set. For me, I get a little melancholy. I just can't wait to get back. I can't spend all the time I like to these days, but hopefully when I retire from my day job, I'll get a chance to stay there until I'm really good and done. So here we go. Let's give this a go. One more time. Well, the rain it comes and that rain it goes. Well, I'm not sure which way it goes, but me without you thinking about. Please wait for me. Sun it does rise and them tides they fall. There's so much more now to it all. It's hard to tell night from day when you're rolling on 24 days. It's a 24 day, them fish be running hard. And 24 day, oh the tide's so tired, now my boots are wet, my gloves are gone. 24 more and I am gone. So I look out my window, what do I see? Well, all my buddies, they're surrounding me. Old Brown Bear is here, and T is too. Well, I'm not sure what to do. So I lay it out, now I let her go. And haul it back, better pick 'em, you know. Lots to do, and a short time you see, 'cause the tide is slipping away from me. The tide it comes, now the tide it goes. And before you know it, that wind starts to blow, and you be sitting dry, just thinking about how you should have hauled out. It's time to haul back and head her on in. We'll put her in the strap, so yeah, call you again. Now I'm blocking up, I'm running about. I gotta catch my plane now. I sit in that seat, I peek out that light. I see the tarmac, you know it's rolling out of sight. Well, I'm already thinking all about the next tide that rolls by. See the rain it comes and that rain it goes. Well, I'm not sure which way it goes, but me without you thinking about. Please wait for me. That'll do it. Great fun. So nice to be here. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Harry. What a wonderful piece. Yeah, it just brought the rain back and all that we love about fishing. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next up, we have Maggie Birch coming to us from Homer, Alaska, a great place. One of my favorite places in Alaska, actually. And I've heard Maggie read before, and I know we have a treat in store. So please welcome Maggie.
Oh, thank you, Holly. It's so wonderful to be here. I think my first Fisher Poets was 5 years ago, which is crazy to think about now. My background in fishing, I was set netting from uterine and all through my childhood, and then did some seining and bought a drift boat and drifted for 5 years, and we'll be returning to the same mud that I was raised in this next summer. So looking forward to that. A year ago today, my partner, the love of my life, was in surgery getting a cancerous brain tumor removed. So my past year and this last summer I wasn't fishing has been a lot about that and just fighting cancer. So the next two poems are about that in relation to fishing. And yeah, I'm excited to be here and share with you guys. Some future. All the missing that fishing brought this love. And now time feels different, sticky like canned peaches left through the freeze. Oncologists and scans teach me to think of time in months, not seasons. October, November, stop. Have the shackles been hung? A question for the future. Will the four-wheeler start? Feels small when I still wake in the night at any of your movements. Sure, things have gotten worse. In a cloudy dream, we are there though. It is July and you are bright with salmon death, with mud and water and work. I watch and wonder as you fall for lines and knots, engines and current speeds. The boat pitches, the lines tug, the tides suck. And in all that tension, I am calm. The next one I have is called Fleeting. This one, yeah, keeping it short. Fleeting. Life as brief and frantic as a salmon run. Shorebirds turn in unison above the rusted cannery. The tundra swamp gives out beneath you. The mud doesn't let you go. That wave comes out of nowhere, and all of a sudden there are decisions to make in warp time. Love like a sucking ebb, everything else racing by, the shoreline, that buoy, a boat. We search for something to hold on to. Cancer, illness is the moon, retching us in and out. Life, belief, disbelief, treatment, tranquility, gratitude, brutality. Nature was my first teacher. She beckoned me to sunny beaches littered with salmon carcasses. She taught me of silver riches drenched in crimson blood. Everything is fleeting, she said in the black suck of the mud, in the sand picked up by the wind, in the heartache, in the rot. And then my next poem is, so my sister and I are buying my mom's Senate site, the one we grew up at. And that's gonna happen this summer, so that's exciting. This poem is called The Origin. Last week, my sister pulled a tarot card that was a salmon. It said she would be returning to her origins. Beach glass and baby dolls, pulling on long underwear and scooping down oatmeal in the dark. These memories are so old, they form photographs. Two girls with tutus over snowsuits on a four-wheeler, the bright red row filling my sister's hands. We didn't learn it all right away, and we don't know very much now, but we know how the tundra rolls, how to cook with what's left in the fridge at the end of the season, how to make tea when everything else feels like despair. We hadn't planned on returning, and I wonder if the salmon don't either, and it catches them off guard when they have too much going on or not enough saved yet. But there it is, a tug towards the origin. They follow, and their sisters do too. That's it. Thank you so much. Just feel honored to be here, and I can't wait till we're doing it in person. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Maggie. What a powerful, terrific reading. Gosh. Yeah, you took us on a whole range of emotions there with that powerful poem about your partner, and then ending with that wonderful poem about your sister. Congratulations on the SetNet site. Thank you for all those vivid details that just help bring it alive. Just all the life in your poems, Maggie. Thank you so much. Okay, next up, we have Jon Lee from Ocean Park, Washington, out on the coast. So look forward to hearing what you have for us, Jon.
Well, I'm actually coming at you from not from the peninsula tonight. I have returned back to my roots down to the peninsula, actually Lower Columbia. So I am a native son of that area, Astoria, but if you could be all here with me right now, where I'm sitting right now here is warm and cheery, and it smells like a fresh big blueberry pie. And so if you all were coming in here, I would just give you a nice piece of blueberry pie, but you're just gonna have to imagine that for me right now. So anyway, Astoria, for those of you who haven't been around, I'm about 29 miles from Astoria where I live. Astoria is still great, still raining. I was just out there in Pier 39 and with Floyd about a month ago. And so what's coming in, we'll welcome you back in another year. So this is for all you folks who have a native son complex, native daughter out there. I got to hang out up in Alaska this last year for a little while out of Juneau, and a lot of things made a lot more sense to me all of a sudden up there. So this is a tale of moving out into the wild world to fulfill your greater destiny and your ultimate journey back home. It's a sordid saga of life, death, sex, reproduction, all told in graphically disturbing detail. And I think this may have been the first song I ever played at Fisher Poets years ago. And I do believe I played it on the Sunday that we had the last Fisher Poets out there in Pier 39. Yeah, rainwater, sweet and cold, fills my gills and stirs my soul, waiting in the bay till the river's running high. 'Cause I'm a native son and I'll come home to die. Well, I left home years ago, head downstream, go with the flow. 1 in 1,000 made it to be fry. 'Cause I'm a native son and I'll come home to die. I alone shall pass unknown, lay my flesh and bone upon the red, and I'll be dead, a native son come home. Yes, salt water, open sea, fraught with peril, wild and free. And then one day I knew my time was nigh. 'Cause I'm a native son and I'll come home to die. Head upstream, but I'll be damned. A big tree's down, my pathway's jammed. Leap the falls, I can almost fly. 'Cause I'm a native son and I'll come home to die. I alone shall pass unknown, lay my flesh and bone upon the red, I'll be dead, a native son come home. My destiny's to spawn and die, explode my load, then pass on by. Find the way, but never wonder why. That's the graphic part. 'Cause I'm a native son and I'll come home to die. 10,000 eggs, 10,000 years. How much longer will we be here? Can the run survive? I know we have to try. 'Cause I'm a native son and I'll come home to die. But I alone shall pass unknown, lay my flesh and bone upon the red, I'll be dead, a native son come home. Yeah, rainwater, sweet and cold, fills my gills and stirs my soul, waiting in the bed till the river's running high. 'Cause I'm a native son and I'll come home to die. We'll see you all in Astoria next year.
Thank you, John. Boy, thank you for bringing Astoria to us. I sure wish we were there with you in that blueberry pie. And I remember you playing that song on that Sunday. It was great to hear it again. Thank you for bringing Astoria into our living rooms until we can gather again. Okay. Yeah, next up, we have from further down the coast, all the way from Northern California, Toni Morosevich from Pacifica, who will be sharing a reading with us from, I believe, her new book. She can tell you more about it.
Great, thank you, Holly. That was such a great song. I just love, following John with this. I'm down here in Pacifica, which is down the coast from San Francisco. But I'm from Everett, Washington, and my dad had the boat, the Purseiner, the Western Maid. He used to fish out of Alaska, out of Dutch Harbor, and the boat was in the family for a long time. It finally sank for the last time off of Coos Bay, and was dredged up in 2017. So it's had its final voyage, but it was a fabulous boat and a good fishing life. The book, I have a new book coming out. It's called Spell Heaven, and it's the sea, because all these stories are sea driven. And in Pacifica, we have a pier that goes out, and a lot of people crab fish off the pier. And it's a great, great, great place to live. And there's a whole lot of interesting, there's a community of people down here that I've written about that I love dearly. And the piece I'm going to read is the shortest piece in the book. It's about also things that come in from the sea, that come in because, you know, they always come in from the sea and you're always finding things on the shore. And this is called This Once Bright Thing. Just before dawn, before someone flips the switch, trips the circuit breaker, turns night into day, before light floods the shore, the sand is swept clean, blown clean, cleared of the crumbs left on the carpet of what the cat tracked in, the sea dragged in. On some days, you can see the footprints of a solitary figure who trudged back and forth along the beach, though this morning there are no footprints, no trail to follow, no breadcrumbs or other leftovers, the bony arms of driftwood, plastic bottles, a length of rope frayed at the end like a ragged wick. You too are frayed at the end of your rope. You've come here to find something, anything, and if there's anything to see, you'll see it. You have an unobstructed view. And then, just when you're about to give up, to turn away, you spot something in the sand. Before you get near, before you take the first step, it's a guessing game. Is it a clear balloon, a discarded jar, a plastic container, a glass float? It looks transparent, something you can see through, a round window, a porthole, which triggers a flash. You were a child, and the neighborhood kid who mowed your grass left a clear glass jug full of gasoline on the back porch, the gas that made the lawnmower go. As the afternoon sun lowered in the sky, its rays glinted off the glass, struck at the right angle, caused a spark, a flame that licked the sides of the jug, carried up the invisible wick, found the porch, the wall of the house, blew through the back door, and came inside. Somewhere across town, fire alarms went off. Somewhere a fireman slid down a pole, and later, after the smoke cleared, a fireman took you up in his fatherly arms, for your own father was far away at sea, in the middle of all that water, of no use out there. Those waves would never make it home and make it to shore in time to put out this flame. As you near the object, you see it's not a jar, a bottle, a float. It's a light bulb in a shape you've never seen, narrow at both ends, round in the middle, as if someone tried to blow up a balloon, lost heart, and then stopped midway. A tinkerer with the right tools could fit a tiny ship inside this bulb, could raise its sails. The ship could sail along that thin silver line of horizon, the filament, a line that looks as delicate as a spider's web. On the outside of the glass are free floaters, hitchhikers, who held on, who came along for the ride, tiny mussels and threads of seaweed and spores. They held on. This object once cast that light onto the water. This fragile thing survived rough seas, was tossed about as we are tossed about. And how do we survive? How did this survive? This fragile glass, this once bright thing that glowed and glowed like memory glows and glows before it is snuffed out, before we forget. Here it is now. Pick it up, hold it in your hands, look inside. Is he still back there, the fireman, still out there, the sea captain, still at the back door, your mother calling you in from play? And what of the boy who cut the grass? Look close. Can you see him now, mowing the grass, trudging back and forth, as the seas go back and forth, as you go back and forth, from the present to the past, to this moment. And through it all, the waves continue, the day continues. Through it all, the morning light continues, bright and curved and sturdy as a flame. Thank you. And thank you, John and Holly and Amanda, for inviting me back. I just, it's just been a joy listening to everybody. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you, Tony, for that beautiful piece. Oh, I just love the interweaving of memory and close observation and so many rich details and the wonderful image at the end of the waves and the flame. Just really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that with us. Next up, we have Will Horniak from Portland, a storyteller extraordinaire who always is spellbinding. So please welcome Will.
Thank you. Well, that's what my publicity says anyways. We'll see, right? Hey, everybody, it's great to be here in Zoom land with you all. Hey, one name I wanted to mention is our friend Clem Stark, who he's alive and well. He's probably out there with his chainsaw cutting up some oak right now, but he lives just beyond the realm of Zoom land, so he has not been able to be here for the past couple of years. But we love Clem. I miss him. I know he's one of the girders of this Fisher Poets gathering, and thanks to all for making it happen again. I hadn't planned on telling a story, but it just seemed like the right story to tell right now. I learned it from Michael Mead, a great storyteller, but it's of White Mountain Apache origin. They say in a long, long, long ago time, a time that was so long ago, people could still listen and animals could still speak. It was in that time that there lived a woman in a deep cave up in the White Mountains, and her name was Weaver Woman. And even in the ancient time, she was ancient. And Weaver Woman was a brilliant artist, and she used porcupine quills and threads, and she would weave this beautiful weaving inside of the cave. And they say without Weaver Woman weaving, there would be no roots, shoots, flowers, fruits. There would be nothing greening, no trees upon the earth. And Weaver Woman at times, you know how it is, she had to put down the weaving because she had other things to do. And she would walk, and she was very old. You know, they say in the creases of her face, in her folds of age, however, there was always youth in her too. And she would come to this big cauldron because she was always cooking up a stew. And she would add herbs to it and different things. And they say without Weaver Woman making the stew, there would be no nourishment upon the earth. And the beautiful mystery of that cauldron that she made was that whoever came to it was always fed. And they say that her stew, it would slake the thirst, it would satisfy the deepest hunger that people had. And yet it was always, always full. But when she walked from her weaving to the cauldron, there was a big black dog just outside of the cave. You know, we all have one of those nearby. And they always know when the time is right. And this dog would steal right into Weaver Woman's cave, and wouldn't he pull apart some of the weaving that she had made, some of the beautiful threads and such. And she would turn and come back and shoo the dog away. She'd sit down and she would curse the dog for a while. But then wouldn't she begin to weave life back into life again? Rethread all that needed to be repaired and rewoven. And some would say it was even more beautiful after she repaired that weaving. And the White Mountain Apache, so it said, they said all praise to Weaver Woman, but some praise to the black dog as well. So I don't know, it's just a story, but as Barry Lopez, a great storyteller, once said, sometimes a story can help us reimagine our own lives. So all praise to the White Mountain Apache for that story. I think that, to me, one of the reasons that it's important to get together is I love this community of people. And to me, that's one of the ways that we reweave the fabric, the torn fabric of the world together, is by making art, being together, and recognizing one another, honoring one another, keeping the fabric of community strong. I loved Maggie's comment about returning to the mud from which she came, or something like that. And I was a Nushagak mud brother for a while. And I wanted to read this little poem, which is called Why I Did It. I was on a setnet camp on the Nushagak and the Ugashik rivers long ago. And this is a poem called Why I Did It. Why I did it. For the money, of course, to make rent, buy groceries, to take a trip somewhere someday. And I did it for the midnight sun, for endless winds, for surging tides that would outrun me on the wide Nushagak River mudflats, tides that sucked hip boots from my feet, tides that always tried to claim me, to make me a part of it. But I did it for the tundra, where bears browsed frost-sculpted land, where they ambled over the bones of woolly mammoths buried eons below. I did it to know a weariness in my bones that I'd never known, to know the nature and the depth of my weakness and my strength in arm and heart and brain. I did it to distill from labor, from fish guts, slime, sweat, stink, anger and fear, from good days and bad, from boat captains, beach bosses, bush pilots, from angels and assholes of every shape and kind. A liquor to sustain, intoxicate, and inspire me over time. I did it just to say the words Egigik, Ekok, Kwijak, Nak, Nek, Nushagak, Togiak, Ugashik, U-pick, bow picker, purse seiner, cork line, lead line, drift net, set net, mug up. And I did it for the mark it made, invisible, indelible in me, for the briny blessing of salmon, salt, and sea. I did it to know the endless shape of respect, regard, and friendship, forged through work, weather, tide, and toil. And I would do it all over again, just for that ramshackle catawampus bathhouse, perched on the edge of the tundra bravely, the crew inside, tired beyond measure, sweating, dousing ourselves with hot water, and emerging then reborn from our little womb of plywood and tar paper, steam and laughter rising from us, stepping fresh, alive into our beloved wide, wild expanse of earth and sea and sky. Why I did it. Thanks so much, everybody, and thanks to all those who labored so hard to bring us all together at this time. And I sure look forward to seeing y'all in our beloved Astoria again. Thanks so much.
Oh boy, thank you, Will. What a beautiful reminder of, I love the metaphor, the fabric of community. That's why we're here. And what a beautiful story you relayed to us, the Apache story. I love that it's the weaver and the black dog. And what a wonderful poem, Why I Did It, all those great words. Yeah, so thank you, Will. We all look forward to being together again. Next up, we're heading north on the coast now, all the way up to Ketchikan, where we have Mariah coming to us. So please welcome Mariah Warren.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Mariah Warren. I've been fishing since 2006, tendering since 2015, first 5 years up in Prince William Sound, and then the last couple, and coming up on another season here in Southeast, running a tender for the Seafood Producers Cooperative out of Sitka, which is actually where I am right now. So in those years, tried out a good handful of the fisheries in Alaska, spent some time doing a few different things, and down the West Coast as well. And the first thing I'm going to read, I wrote for my captain, Heather Sears, when we were fishing albacore down out of, off BC, Washington, Oregon. Wrote it for her and for our running partners. She runs a boat called Princess with an all-woman crew. It was called it Girl Island, and our partners were on the Island Girl. So I wrote a poem called From Girl Island to the Island Girl, a rhapsodic reverie. So Heather turned the wheel west. She smiled with a sigh. I won't lie, the guy has me impressed. The ocean here is lonely and I miss that voice. I have made my choice. The static and the silence are too strange. We'll run until we're within range of the Island Girl boys. Down below the blowing seafoam, you can hear a fearful noise and a tuna tune, all in the tone a supplicant employs. We're more than merely nervous. They aim to cook and serve us, freeze and thaw, and then hors d'oeuvre us. And we know that they deserve us, but Poseidon, please preserve us from those vicious and bloodthirsty killer Island Girl boys. No attributing this to our siren wiles or any wishes we may have to learn your hot spots or get lucky with the fishes, but we fawn upon your prowess so and envy your cool poise. Ambassadors to Tuna Town, we know you merely say, renounce the briny deep for the briny hold, come join the fold. And the fish don't have a choice. They must obey the Island Girl boys. No others could equate. You are the true masters of bait. You debonair and dashing, gaff hook wielding and throat slashing, dangerous yet rather cuddly, artsy craftsy and quite studly, connoisseurs of the sea's fine piscine joys, you Island Girl boys. And next is just a short piece I wanted to read for my dear friends Glenn and Christine Bernacki, who I believe are watching in Bellingham tonight. I worked with them in the commercial dive fisheries, and I just wrote a little poem for them when they got married a couple of years later called Love Me Tender. When Glenn and Christine set to sea, intrepid and in love, he was her dauntless diver darling, she his tender topside dove. And through the vagaries of life afloat with storms and dirty socks and only grumpy muffled roars from Glenn's communication box, through the wind and sleet and blinding hail, it could not be denied. Through all we do, she always knew her place was on Glenn's side. She came to comprehend our friend, each aspect of his charm, and yet, despite the means and motive, she never did him harm. Today we see the revelry, our dearest groom and bride, and celebrate one knot, at least, most elegantly tied. A blessing to the plucky pair, and here's how it goes. May he always mind the calms, and may she never kink his hose. So that was for Glenn and Christine. I love you guys. Last thing I wrote for this evening and for the running partners. I've been attending FisherPoets and performing since 2014. Last year, the first digital edition, I wasn't able to attend. I'd been for some weeks helping take care of my grandmother, who was getting ready to take her final journey. And as FisherPoets weekend approached, I kind of saw where things were going and begged off, which ended up being the right choice. She took her final trip the Friday that I was slated to perform, but I missed all you guys last year, and I've missed you since the 2020 FisherPoets. And so this poem is for the running partners and for all of you. It's wonderful to see your sweet faces. I've been dreaming of nautical nights offshore and hazy radar running mates, the ones we scan the darkness for when seas are big and dawn far off, and how, on spotting them, the fear abates. So maybe we were coding and heard of the same hot bite. Maybe it was chance, a weather window, or crossing paths on the dock that brought us together that particular night. We're used to being far apart, alone, away from home, away, out there, and yet a running partner's radar blip or running lights or salt spray sodium crab light loom lights up the night. We both are watching, mutually aware. You were the ones I followed first in springtime, laying down new tracks across the ever-shifting channels, round the sticks and through the high spots of the maze we call the flats. And I remember gatherings outside the bar, times when conditions were at their worst, and how sometimes you waited to watch us go, and sometimes we watched you go first. I think we on the sea have a frame for all that, the reaching out from far away, striving together to reach protection in the next bay, and the art of the cell phone, sat phone, Zolio, InReach, CB, and VHF radio chat. I know you're out there, buddies, though you feel so far away, and though it's been a long, hard run since last we left the FisherPoets dock, with hugs and laughter, looking after each departure as we saw the world changing, but we promised we'd be back again, together, next year, or someday. It's been a cold, dark trip at times with confusing seas, and it's been hard to know which way to go at times and when to make a break for it, and when and where to wait it out. And there's been doubt about whether the weather will ever ease. But I see you running partners on another glowing screen, and your voices from the speakers belie the distance in between. And in 1,000 ways, we tell ourselves between each ship and crew, we're all in the storm together, and together we'll make it through. Thank you.
Oh, terrific. Thank you for that last poem, especially Mariah. We've been needing that, you know. It's such a reminder of the power of this community, even in these little, looking at each other in these little screens. So thank you. That was just beautiful. And I'm up next, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I guess I just want to echo a lot of the words that have already been said about the sense of community and how grateful I am for it. And thank you, Will, for bringing up Clem. Clem's been on my mind all night, so I'm so glad you brought his spirit into the room. I'm sure he'd be here with us if he could. So, and he probably is out, you know, chopping wood, or at least he probably was today. So I fished in Southeast Alaska with my former husband, Dave, on the Mary Maid from 1979 to 1983, alongside John Doreen on the Beverly Sioux. And then Dave and I ran tenders for 4 years for herring and salmon in Prince William Sound, Togiak, and Bristol Bay. I left fishing after that, but I kept returning to Alaska. And all those years tendering earned me enough sea time for a 500-ton mate license. So over the past 2 decades, I've skippered a 65-foot schooner called Crusader, worked as a mate on research vessels, and most recently taught writing on kayak and meditation trips in Southeast Alaska. I'm going to share a few poems about the years when I fell in love with navigation from my poetry collection, Sailing by Ravens, which came out from University of Alaska Press in 2016. I'm grateful to have learned navigation in the old days, during the days of paper charts, which meant learning how to dead reckon to plot your course position. And the first poem is really a description of that. So you'll hear it. It's called The Navigational Fix. For a good fix, we need 2 lines 45 degrees apart to meet. One leg of the dividers anchored, the other swinging on its arc until the lines intersect. X saying here, this moment, wrenched from time, plumbed in place. I spread the divider's metal legs, measured degrees and seconds, minutes, hours, gauge speed made good, prick one small foot, drag its lead twin in an arc, an easy pivot. Then the next, take a bearing off the lighthouse, another arc, and where the 2 overlap, a sprawling X. But already we've moved on. And I think that's one of the things I loved about navigation, that sense of being so fully in the moment, of, you know, being able to actually chart where you are in the moment. And then the paradox that at that point you've moved on. You can't step in the same sea twice. So the next poem I'd like to read was inspired by a trip aboard a tramper, a Japanese tramper in Bristol Bay when we were tendering. We'd deliver our salmon to the processing ship, and then they would run it out to the trampers. And somehow we got aboard the tramper, got an invitation to go aboard the tramper. And got a tour of the wheelhouse, where I saw for the first time a gyroscope which plotted great circle routes. And now, of course, I know this can be computed automatically on a course plotter or with a GPS. But at that time, the idea of great circle sailing was sort of a revelation, and it inspired a poem. She dreams of great circle sailing, the shortest distance between 2 points, a line, but only if this world is flat. As the crow flies, a better measure for where dreams venture, soft swell of horizon, woman's breast, lines that wander before finding home. Not lines, but curves like barrel staves around this spinning earth follow sun's arc across the sea. Consider stars, sidereal praise, stones ripple, mare's tails combing empty skies. Bend of mast, billowed sail, heart swell, ever out toward that curved horizon wind carries. How will she learn to ride the swell? Let the earth curve her. Yeah, and there's sort of a narrative arc that runs through that collection. And so if you get the book, you can find out what happens. Finally, one more short poem, which I wrote back in 2010 after attending a marine biologist presentation on ocean acidification, which of course is caused by climate change and warming seas as well, which we are certainly experiencing now. So remember, as I read it, that this poem was written 10 years ago. So it offers kind of an interesting perspective. It's called 2020. Little did we know what 2020 had in store. Tonight, the scientist said, almost under his breath, we're changing the ocean too fast for it to recover. Clicked to his next slide, graph predicting when the coral reefs will all be bleached. 1 degree warmer, already the sea more acidic, even with the melt from polar ice caps. We squint as the line climbs the stairs, then shoot straight up at 2020, 10 years away, when the coral reefs will fade to gray. We fall silent, stare as though it is a quiz, and we still can't believe we could fail. So, not wanting to end on a negative note, I encourage you to consider attending the Global Ocean Health Workshop with Brad Warren tomorrow from 3 to 4, where you can learn about recent legislation in Washington to address the effect of climate change on the oceans and how you can get involved. And I'm grateful to the work of Global Ocean Health. It's great that we are moving forward, even if it seems like it's not happening as fast as we would like. Okay, next up we have Henry Hughes. We're not related, although I think we are related, at least in our love of words. So please welcome Henry Hughes.
Thank you, Holly, and thanks for those wonderful poems. I love the way you capture navigation, and that sense of being in the moment, and yet, having moved on. What a great connection to philosophy and the technology of shipping, and also the great poem about the tramper too. That's fascinating. The history of navigation. So thank you for your beautiful poems. You're a fantastic MC and a great artist. It's really very fortunate. Thank you. Well, I live in Oregon. I've lived here 20 years, but I grew up on the East Coast, on Long Island, New York, and did a little bit of commercial fishing. I was mostly a deckhand on charter fishing boats, but also pitched in on a dragger or a lobster boat. And I shellfished. I picked oysters for 2 seasons. We had a lot of fertile bays where I grew up, and we just go out at low tide and pick oysters. And so this first poem is just a bit of a reminiscence about those beautiful waters of my youth. And there's a body of water mentioned here, Conscience Bay. What a great name, right? Conscience Bay. So if we know that region on the north shore of Long Island, that would be kind of between Port Jefferson, that was my hometown, and Stony Brook. There's a big university there. So this is Oyster Blues. When I see oystermen bending slowly at low tide, I think of my own labored summers, backache, sunburn, biting flies, pulling oysters from dark, tight mud and from the sides of steep flats between the mussels and cordgrass. Kneeling in the warm mire, I felt simpler. A terrapin, a horseshoe crab, oysters, the whole colony breathing before me. There is something I long for, moving like a creature over the cluttered bed, picking the living among the dead. Let me drive home to Conscience Bay, the shallow flats, goose skull and gray, and walk back years in old canvas shoes, baskets full of oyster blues. My other poem, it comes out of what we're experiencing right now. I've heard many heartfelt concerns of what's happening in the Ukraine. And I wrote this poem in late January. Many of you will remember that the Russian fleet was sailing south to conduct these live fire drills off the Irish coast, well within their national zone and on their fishing grounds, right? And did you follow this in the news? It was incredible. So Ireland doesn't have much of a navy. They couldn't really do anything militarily, but the fishermen got together and said, we're going to go out and fish. Essentially, we're going to go out there and do what we do and interfere if necessary with this massive naval operation. I'm so impressed with that. So this is a little something for the Irish fishermen. In County Cork, the lads at O'Donoghue's catch the news. Russia's gray fleet heading south for war games over Porcupine Bank, where they trawl whiting, mackerel, prawns, pollock, and hake. For heaven's sake, O'Malley slams a fist like a depth charge. They set down pints and whiskeys, nudge aside fish chowders and soda bread, and watch the missile cruiser Eustenoff combing a wake round Norway while a nuke sub drills the Danish straits. Texting, calling skippers and crew, what do we do? No missiles and bombs in our backyard, Carlton barks. They'll blow the fish to bits, the bartender says, and you boys with them. Next day, O'Hara replaces the hose on his barrel winch. Hughes hangs an orange wheelhouse door. Walsh finally scrubs that stinky ice machine on his old green dingle, and Kelly rewires the loudhailer that wakes the foggy harbor. Stay clear, Mr. Putin. We're going fecking fishing. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good night.
Oh, that was terrific, Henry. Boy, how prescient of you too. Yeah, that was wonderful. Thank you for your kind words too. So we're coming to the end of our lineup. We just have one reader left, and that is somebody who just kind of slid in at the last moment. So we just talked briefly on the phone today, and I'm so glad that she can join us. This is Michelle, I guess she goes by, Myers from Anchor Point, Alaska. And she has a wealth of fishing experience from tuna fishing to Bristol Bay, and I look forward to hearing more about it. Please welcome Shell.
Hi, everyone. Hello from Anchor Point.
Actually, before we get going, can we get you to turn your phone, actually?
Oh, yeah, no problem. Sorry,
it
it worked
sideways.
Refer on here, so thanks for the heads up. Okay, so I guess we'll just get right into it. This one's called On a Boat Full of Fishermen with No One to Talk to, and that one's about tuna fishing. It says, breathe me in some real good conversation, please. Close quarters, thickening air, we've struck up the same breath-holding contest again and again and again. All of oxygen's kind patrons, takers, greedy, taking up space, making a waste, holding all the good monotony for themselves, feeding anchovies to tuna, feeding tuna blood to anchovies, cheap talking them into tomorrow, staring out over an open ocean hundreds of miles away from shore. Hundreds of miles away from the warmest bodies we know, wondering why an albatross, a merganser maybe, but a pigeon would find itself on the deck of your boat, far beyond the point of return. Keep the pigeon here. Give me the first turn of the season, good fishing to come, and breathe me in some real good conversation, please. And then this next one is called This Must Be the Place, and this is about the search, the quest for fish. It says, you have seen no fish. I shall whisper into my fingertips, so when my eyes do find the place, my hands will be there to cover my mouth. Extreme caution is necessary in complete isolation in the quest for a catch. The careful compounding of pounds to keep people fed, to which every misstep, a collapse can occur. This place in particular, where the wet and wild west commences and completes, is so salmon pink you cannot tell the sea from the sky. Rivers are stocked so thick I can stick my toe in and catch one. Though I am a child whose composition is careful and in commemoration of such monumental moments, our changing environment, greenhorns, a shit set, seals, loose lips, and many empty nets, while straddling the saddle of the semblance of what's left, a discovery or skill or luck, I shall whisper into my fingertips so as to keep my mouth shut and my mind together. Like any careful person would, sleeping next to the one they love, whispering, to the wall of your bunk, not the galley, its hollow-eyed patrons, or even your radio mates. Just a wall. Don't wake them. And then this last one here is a short story about jellyfishing or set netting, one or the other. And it's called Paradise. And it says, the set net fishing site Paradise is not named for the obvious reasons, though the previous owners believed it to be so. They would boat to the cannery often, simply to resupply. They never had any fish to deliver. They would never order anything but good food. No parts, no ice, no nothing, depending on your perspective anyway. Eventually, a woman at the cannery caught on. When the Sands fishermen boated over for the resupply, she leaned over the counter and said to the crew, "What do you think this is, paradise?" The fishing sites cannot be occupied unless one fishes it, so when they acquired the permits, it was presumed they would do so. And as of now, there are nets in the water at Paradise. The new owner is an older man that runs the site with one other crew member. He grits his teeth often, as if he's constantly stumbling headfirst into a blizzard, cursing in awe at the cascading complexities of Kodiak Island. He doesn't own a television, but he does own a book on bullshit. His words are either soft-spoken or screamed with efficiency. There is no filter to be found in his throat or in his heart. Soft or loud, his words do not shake your ears, but rather shatter your soul. He will laugh when he tears the skin clear off his finger in the middle of the wilderness, and will laugh even harder after I instruct him to clean it with alcohol and he poured bourbon in it, not understanding the instructions or finding better use for the liquor we wouldn't drink anyway. He has a Playboy bunny keychain and no idea how he got it. The harbor master saw me carrying it around one afternoon back to the boat. He gave my dog a treat and gave me a wink. The Paradise cabin is covered with pictures of his friends, family, and newspaper clippings. There is a single whiteboard up with the names of his friends, families, and the dates when they passed on. He looks at them with purpose daily and never glances ponderously. When he rests, he lays down on his back with his hands folded and looks either at the oil fireplace or out the window that faces the sea. He only rests when a job is good and done or for a meal, but only if the job is short-lived enough to allow it. He can't hear very well. I'd be one afternoon away from ever attempting to scream talk to him in the skiff if only his company wasn't as quality as his fish. He has a wooden block he keeps on the center of the table that he refers to as the monolith, and a blue mermaid in the windowsill. He gives us young bucks chili every night and a run for our money. During our last day at Paradise and the first bit of downtime since leaving, we put our feet up in irony. And this last one is a real short one. It's called Americanisms, just as my short note on the current state of affairs in a fun, lighthearted sort of way. It says, living with the sickness of the American heart is like swimming through a sea of glass. And any seafarer worth their weight in salt that's ever been to Fort Bragg will tell you that all the glass on the beach is only just trash. Thank you all for listening. And thank you especially to Jon and Holly for giving me a chance to read here. I'm shaking like a chihuahua, but I'm having the best time mostly listening to everyone and your incredible stories. I could not be more grateful to be here and participate. And I can't thank you all.
Well, so glad you could join us, Shal. That was just so lucky that you could slip in at the last minute, and what amazing stories you have. And I know this won't be the last time we hear you. We look forward to meeting you in person in Astoria. We hope next year, and trust that you'll be back. Thank you again for stepping up, even if you were shaking in your boots. So that's where it all starts. Yeah, good. Good. And I'm going to wrap up now. I want to start out by thanking our sponsors. First, thanks to everybody in the audience. I can't see you, but I know that there are quite a few of you out there, which is exciting. So thank you. We hope you'll be back tomorrow, and we'll tell your friends too. We also want to thank our sponsors, Oregon Sea Grant, KMUN and the Tillicum Foundation, the Oregon Community Foundation's Patricia Friedland Fund, the Cannon Beach Arts Association, and through it, the Cannon Beach Tourism and Art Fund, Carol Brill and Douglas Booth, and the Alfred Landwehr and Tom and Vicky, I'm sorry, let me start over again. The Alfred Landwehr family and Tom and Vicky Stringfellow for their support. And I just want to say again, thank you to Mick Hasson, who, as John mentioned, ran the sound for Fisher Poets for over a decade as it grew with, multiplying venues every year. And that the story goes that even after he moved to Florida, he'd fly back, round up his crew, and make it all work again. So we miss him, and we're grateful for all that he gave to Fisher Poets. Finally, just a quick reminder to check out the workshops tomorrow on the FPG webpage. You can sign up for a memoir workshop with Pat Dixon, whom you heard read tonight. You can cut the slack out of your lines with John Broderick, or you could write about objects as history and talisman with Laura Messersmith-Clavin, who you'll hear tomorrow. You can learn about the history of Japanese fish prints with Duncan Berry, or learn storytelling techniques from Will Horniak, who you also heard tonight. And these are just a few of the great offerings. Be sure to check them all out on the Fisher Poets website, which is just fisherpoets.org. So I know we're in Zoom land right now, but just a thanks to all the performers tonight. I want them to be able to hear your applause. And thanks to everybody who's joined us from wherever you are across the country, up and down the West Coast, primarily. We hope you'll all be back here tomorrow night for more poems, music, stories, and some good old welcome fishing camaraderie. I personally have found this night very healing, especially in the midst of a really challenging week in terms of news. So thank you for reweaving the fabric of community, as Will said so eloquently. So please tell your friends about this, and we will see you all tomorrow night. And with that, I'm going to turn the wheel back over to John and give him the last word. This is like the old days. You pick me up, John.
Pick me up, John. Yeah. Oh, son of a gun. I've got Steve Schoonmaker and Clark Whitney on the phone, and we can't figure out why we can't get, they're next online. Who knows why we can't get them on, darn it. So unless Amanda and Jamie can work a miracle in the next seconds, we'll have to squeeze them in someplace or another. Darn it. Yeah, that's how fishing sometimes is.
Okay, well, tell them thanks for trying. That, yeah, next year for sure, maybe.
Next year for sure, maybe. Oh, man, I see Amanda's note says, oh, dang, well, we're just, Steve, Clark, sorry. Well, let's see what we can do maybe tomorrow. I'm just sorry to hear that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jamie just wrote squeeze them in tomorrow if we can. So let's hope we can do that.
Yeah, I guess Clark may not be able to make it. Steve might be able to get there. It's too bad. I'm sorry, you guys. But that's Fisher Poets Gathering. So thanks, Holly, for a seamless job tonight. I could take some lessons in manners from you. So I enjoyed myself. See, Jay's dropped by a year ago. We weren't doing this, and now we're taking some risks. And it's just I enjoyed this evening so much, and I don't think I'm alone. It's so great to see you guys, and even we know there are folks who couldn't make it tonight. Schoonmaker and oh, I hear Clark.
Hey,
Yes,
I'm here.
this is how we do this stuff. We're gonna scoot these guys in at the last moment, and I'm so happy with that. Hey, Clark, have at it, baby.
We almost missed the set. We almost missed the opener. Hey, Steve's up first.
All right. See you. Thanks for seeing it.
Wow, how about that? Okay. You got me now?
We do.
You do? Okay, cool. Well, I'll go little intro. This next summer will be my 40th season fishing. 13 years on stage at Astoria, but 2 years on the contraption now. I'm hoping we get back next year, of course. You know, I thought about what to do tonight, and I'm gonna do a poem I've done before. It kind of speaks to this whole arc, in my view, of since I started with FisherPoets on the 10th anniversary. You know, it's a romantic lifestyle that we live, this fishing thing, and it's a poetic lifestyle. And I can see where it leads to, you know, writers and poets and songwriters, you know. It's a poetic living, you know. And when I first came in, I had a few poems. Second or third year, I wrote this poem. And it's called Reflecting the Sun. And really, you know, for me, when I live a poetic life, it's the things in the moment, the moments that really shine, you know, these things that stand out when you're in your memory over time, you know. Since I started, you know, like if you sing, you start learning how to hear, you know, if you paint, you kind of learn how to see. And when you do the poetry, you kind of learn how to see poetry in your life. It's everywhere. And sometimes I got to stop myself from being so caught up in trying to catch everything, to write about everything, because the fact that we live such a poetic life, and we know it, and when you start, you know, visualizing these things and feeling it along the way, it really is a beautiful thing. And I think it's wonderful that this whole gathering has brought people together for that same reason, the romance and the poetry of it, you know, and our personal expression. So I'll start with the poem here. You know, it's really about being in the moment, reflecting the sun. When the times are the moment and the reds are on the run, and the night's but a comment while the work's getting done, and the scales on the decks sing the song so resung. The moon rises the tide lines, reflecting the sun. When those sets of the drive and the catch is the fuel, all the parts in each boat connect each fool. When the times are the moment, like your boat prop's a tool. Like the fish you don't catch can turn into your school. If the zeros upon checks reflect work getting done, salmon hang from your gill net, reflecting in the sun. Yeah, in the blur of a slaughter, through the change of the tides, through the wandering thoughts as the grinding resides, cold, worn, and tired, and weak in the mind. Oh, that warm moment somewhere on our bed that's real nice. And the shine of her hair with the roll of her dice, and the soft of her neck with some loving begun by the glint of an earring, reflecting the sun. From the times of the moment, yeah, and the daydream succumbed to the clank of that snap when the set is all done. Well, it's reality now, man. Better set back or run, because nobody knows till the fat lady's sung. Go out and guess yourself, burn the fuel and have fun, because life's like the day breeze, reflecting the sun. Because, you know, life's like the summer when it's all said and done, or the end of a set, or a red salmon run, whether effort and catch ever catch up to some. or the predators lack to relinquish the hunt with the smell of the diesel and the damp of the bunk. When the sea and the sky know all the planks of the sunk, yes, and those derelicts left with their memories done, the flukes of their props stopped, reflecting the sun. Like a stage of great plays, you know, that our bodies become, reflecting a lifetime of work getting done, all the loves and the loans, like the arc of the sun. All those boats and those nets and the harbor talk done, like the scales on the decks, sing the song soul resung. When the times of the moment, but then it's left to the young to work those wet boat decks out there reflecting the sun. Because you know, the waters, they don't know what's an end from begun, or the highs from the lows, from all those reds on the run, or life from a death, from some work getting done. Because you know, it's all just returning. It's returning like the rivers, which are reflecting the sun. You know, it's not so much the dying we need to be concerned about, I think. It's the not living. And I'm so grateful for the poetic life that I'm able to live and to share with you people. And we can juice each other up on all this creativity about this wonderful thing we have. I think that's what I wanted to say pretty much. Thanks, and I really hope we're back next year to the stage. I got some new poems, but they're too long for 5 minutes. And thanks again for letting me be a part of this. So I guess I'll hand it over to my friend Clark, who's standing by.
All right, I made it. I don't know what went wrong, but I'm glad to be here. I'm so grateful to be part of this. It's a wonderful thing. And I just want to start off by saying that I started fishing in 1979 in Bristol Bay. My father bought a boat and a drift gillnet permit, and I was just instantly enchanted by the whole process. And this is a song I wrote about that time. It's called I Want to Be a Fisherman, or The Deckhand's Dream. Oh, I want to be a fisherman. I won't wear a business suit. Oh, I'd rather wear a hoodie and a pair of rubber boots. Rather stand upon a rolling deck and look out at my net than to hang out in an office where from some chair I'd set. Oh, and you won't see me worshiping in a building built by men. I'll be praying on the water where you know it all began. 'Cause I've yet to see a man-made thing that can begin to match the mountains and the waters and the fish we like to catch. Throw the boot, hooey, let her go, let her go. Throw the boot, hooey, let her go. Throw the boot, hooey, let her go, let her go. Throw the boot, hooey, let her go. So I'll ship out on a Bristol boat and we'll go out on the sea with an honest crew and skipper, and we'll know that we are free. I will work real hard all season and every season till I can make enough to buy a sturdy boat, and I'll be a fisherman. And when we pull into the cannery, I will see that cannery girl at the bar, and when the music plays, I'll be sure to make her twirl. When the music it stops playing and we're watching the sunset, I will tell her of my future plan, making money with my net. Oh, that's when I'll sing my little song, and I hope that she'll agree to join me on my my sturdy boat and to live upon the sea. Throw the boot, buoy, let her go, let her go. Throw the boot, buoy, let her go. Throw the boot, buoy, let her go, let her go. Throw the boot, buoy, let her go. Thank you so much for letting me perform again this year, and I can't wait to get back to Astoria and perform live. Thank you.
Oh man, are we glad to see you guys. Thanks for hanging with us. That's how it goes. What a wonderful group of folks. Thanks for the voices, young and old, polished and less so. We love it all. It's the real deal, folks. Thanks for making that appearance there, Clark and Steve. Yeah, just pardon us for whatever didn't go quite right. Hey, tomorrow there are really terrific opportunities to hear Pat, to hear Laura read from memoirs and offer some encouragement for your own writing. Will Horniak has got some a workshop on performances. I'm going to do a little deal about editing and sharpening up your writing a little bit. Brad Warren is going to give us some encouragement and some direction about ocean global health. There's good news about local watersheds, improving the salmon environment. And of course, late in the afternoon, about 4 o'clock, a number of us can get together and read some Campbell stuff together. And then a whole evening of Fisher Poets again tomorrow night. You know, as much as we all long to get back together in Astoria, and we hope we will next year, the one wonderful thing about this virtual deal is that we're able to see everybody, which we just can't do when we're crowded into 7 venues across 2 or 3 nights over there. So it's been a wonderful thing to see everybody, and or as many as can. Some we're missing here tonight as well. Anyway, thanks for a wonderful evening. I wanted to say one thing about this book here, which is an anthology. It's just come out this year, and I can see we've already missed a lot of great poets. But you're going to find 40 or 50 of them in here, and art from about 15 or more visual artists. Cannon Beach Arts Association made this happen this year, and we've got a new anthology. Jan's My Life. You might recognize it as a line from Katrina Porteous's poem, Kathy. But have a look at that when you get a moment. Put it in your pocket and take some Fisher poetry with you. I can see we're going to have to get another anthology dialed in, because there's a lot of poems that I've heard tonight I'd like to have copies of myself. So
what a great set this was tonight. I'm really just moved. It went sideways, it went up, it went down. I mean, this is what it's about, really. You know, it's just such a range, older, younger, and everybody in between. But if you like this, tune in tomorrow. This was only half of what is yet to come. So we're still just looking forward to a whole lot more tomorrow.
All right. Good night. See you tomorrow.
Thanks.